Welcome, Wapham crew, guys, gals, ghouls, and otherworldly beings. Let's climb aboard the mothership, secure our tinfoil hats, buckle down tight, and hold on loosely as we soar over the rocky tops of the La Platas on a rocky mountain high, get sucked into the vortex of the Four Corners, and settle down snugly at mile marker 420 in colorful Colorado. I'm your ghostess with the mostest, TessaTNT, and I am broadcasting live from the Mile High Clubhouse tonight. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you. And thanks so much for coming and hanging out with me this evening. I hope you had an amazing Christmas, Hanukkah, or Kwanzaa, whichever you may have been celebrating. If you didn't celebrate, perhaps celebrate yourself. We got a new year coming up. I can't believe that's happening already. It's pretty intense, pretty crazy. Can you believe it? Like, I don't know. It just seems like 2025 just started, a few months ago. But here we are at the very end of it. And I'm hoping 2026 is way better than 2025 was, because what a mess. Oh, brother, this guy stinks. All right. So if you want to listen in the free time, whether you're working it or working out, feel free to check me out on We Are Paradox Media at Spreaker.com and basically anywhere else that you listen to your broadcasts and podcasts. Also, feel free to mosey on over to our YouTube, like, subscribe, leave comments, whatever floats your boat. Also, if you have a message for me or a guest or videos that you'd like me to share, just shoot them on over to weareparadoxmedia@gmail.com and I'll be sure to check it out. All right. So, what are we doing tonight? Trippy TikToks. Are you ready? I was looking at like craziest TikToks of 2025 and stuff like that, and there is some really awesome stuff in there, but there's also some ish that doesn't even, I don't know, make sense. So, I don't know. I feel like AI is ruining everything. Why AI? Why? Yeah, well, let's get into it, shall we? Let's make it bigger. There we go. You can even make it bigger. What do you think? This one or this one? Are they the same size? I can't even tell. I don't know. Kind of look it up here better though. All right. I feel like we need to make this one bigger. All right. Let's go. Oh, what? What just happened? All I did was. What the heck? That is so weird. There we go. Wow. Wow. I've never had that happen before. All I did was press the space bar.
Our own galaxy alone, which has 100 billion star systems, the same number of stars that we have as we have neurons in our brain, interestingly, that we're dealing with civilizations just in our own galaxy, which is one of billions, that are able to go through interstellar space. Now, I want to touch on this for a moment because it deals with a little.
And just in case you don't know, this is Dr. Greer testifying on extraterrestrials visiting our planet. It says this one is quite old. It's a 2013 Citizens UFO hearing, 40 witnesses, 10 different countries, 30 plus hours of testimony. That's quite a bit, I must say. Dr. Greer speaks on the fact extraterrestrials are visiting planet Earth and how they travel from light years away. All right.
Bit that Linda referred to in terms of trans-dimensional or other dimensions. And the technologies and the sciences dealing with this subject are what we have termed trans-dimensional interstellar, TDIS. And this refers to very advanced sciences and technologies where there is a nexus between electromagnetism and the magnetic field, gravitational forces in three-dimensional space and time, and what Dr. John at Princeton in the engineering lab began to prove is the science of consciousness, which was actually an issue that I did talk a fair amount with Lawrence Rockefeller about. Now, a lot of people say, well, this gets into the deep end of the pool very quickly, and in fact it does. But I think that it's important to understand that if you're dealing with civilizations that have gotten here, and that's what we're dealing with, you're not dealing with something that can go just straight through space at the speed of light even, because the speed of light is too slow. And I remember when I was having dinner with CIA Director Woolsey and his wife, and actually the really most insightful question came from Dr. Woolsey, who at the time was Chief Operating Officer of the National Academy of Sciences. And she said, what I want to know is, how are these civilizations communicating across the vastness of space? Because your cell phone and radio waves are going at the speed of light. And I said, yes, that's just too slow. Speed of light is way too slow. And I had a gut check. I said, do I tell her the truth and lose all credibility as a scientist and a doctor? Or do I tell her something that sounds scientific, but that's really not true? And ever since then, I have vowed that if someone is intelligent enough to ask the question, I will provide the answer as truthfully as I can. So I turned to her and I said, well, Dr. Woolsey, it's like this. It turns out thinking is the best way to travel. And the speed of thought is not quantifiable. However, when you start getting into the new physics that have been done, where you have the ability to teleport across vast distances instantly, and this has been done with particles, but we're talking about civilizations that can do it with entire spacecraft and occupants. You're dealing with an entirely new physics. But their communication devices and their own innate abilities allow for thought-actuated events. And I know Dr. Wood may mention this, that he discovered when he was doing some work for old man McDonald of McDonnell Douglas, that he looked into some cases where in some meetings with these ETs involved a little box, and there was a direct thought communication, but it was also being facilitated through electronics. And this is something that we call technology-assisted consciousness and thought. And this is a very specific area of study that I've really devoted about 22 years to, which may be beyond the scope of this hearing. But I think that in terms of just bringing this issue around, there are so many aspects of it that are very exciting from the point of view of science, technology, and understanding the universe and ourselves. And also, who are we? And where did we come from? And how is it that we exist in this cosmos that is and I agree with Edgar Mitchell on this, that is a conscious quantum hologram that is awake and that we are all part of, and that mind itself is the ultimate final frontier, not space, but consciousness and mind. Now, I know that Lawrence Rockefeller was very interested in these things because I had conversations with him also. But one of the things that I found when I was working with these folks is that there's a saying in American business, everyone wants to be first to be second. And so in this case, there's so many people who have had an interest in this, but they want to hold back and not speak the whole truth about it. But I think we need to be able to liberate ourselves to speak the truth. And it involves many, many complex issues, part of which has been touched on in the last 15 or 20 minutes. One thing I also want to point out is that if we're being visited by advanced civilizations, and it's our assessment that certainly we are, who is handling that relationship? Do we cede that management to the military-industrial complex, and what are the consequences of doing so? Think about this very carefully. I remember doing a meeting with the Boutros-Ghali family, the UN Secretary General, his wife Leah Ghali, and we were talking about this. And Leah Ghali turned to me and she said, "Dr. Greer, we need you to do this now. We need you to do." I said, "I'm a country doctor in North Carolina rattling around in an emergency department. You're the head of the world." She says, "No, we can't. It's too dangerous for Boutros." I'm quoting. And then I remember talking to this wonderful senator, Claiborne Pell, who was mentioned earlier. And I was speaking with him, and I would never have gone to college if not for a Pell Grant, because I was very, very, very poor. Grew up in North Carolina, had no resources, put myself through the last years of high school and college and med school, but I mean, really poor. And most people don't know that, but what I found when I was talking to Senator Pell, who was chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee, and I was at a meeting with Edgar Mitchell and some other folks, and I looked at him, and he said, Dr. Greer, I have never been given any information on this, even though I have inquired through any official channels. And I said, yes, sir, what a shame, because you, the chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, have been denied the responsibility of dealing with the ultimate foreign relations issue. And I pointed to the stars above our heads. And he looked at me through those hornworm glasses and said, well, you know, Dr. Greer, you may be right. I said, well, I am. And I said, well, what a shame. So I think this is another dimension. There's the science and technology part of it, but there's the part of it about relationships. And we are not alone in the universe. And we need to have a situation on this planet where our higher nature, our better angels, folks like Senator Pell and others who would approach this in an enlightened way, could reach out and form what has begun to be discussed in the French government that I referred to earlier in this Ministry of Defense memo to me, a peaceful interplanetary, interstellar diplomatic initiative.
Honestly, ladies and gentlemen, he flew 1,200 with the wind in his back into the inside of this planet.
Okay, so for those that are listening and not watching, this is retired U.S. intelligence officer talks about Admiral Byrd's journey to inner Earth. And Rich51 is the one who shared it, just in case you want to check it out.
Not a molten core. Far from it. Continental shells bigger than on the surface. Seas that were equal to ours. And he took 300 photographs and brought them back, and I tried to see them, and Franklin Birch, who was at the National Archives, would not let me in. Oh, I got in the cage, but I couldn't look at anything. Caldwell found those records and read them in 1940, and he took his round-wing plane in and went right through the Earth and came out at the South Pole in a 125-mile opening there. That's one thing he did. I told you that was 1940. That was a great accomplishment of the round-wing plane at that point. We hadn't had to fight a war. We hadn't had to do anything. 1952, I hesitate to tell you. I've had 3 attempts on my life, and I don't know if I'll walk away from this meeting if I say any more. I've had the needle, I've been poisoned, and I've had people sent to kill me.
All right, you wanted the wild one. The rabbit hole continues. Part 7. So if there are infinite versions of you existing across all timelines, are the other versions NPCs? Let's break this open, and I promise you've never heard it explained like this before. And before you roll your eyes and scroll, yes, I have scientific research to back this up. Let's go. First, let's clear this up. There are no NPC versions of you. There are only less conscious versions, less upgraded versions, earlier software builds of the same soul. You're not competing with them, you're integrating with them. Let me explain. As we talked about in the last part, your oversoul runs all versions of you. The you now, the you that made different choices, parallel timeline you, higher density you, and the final version of you, future you. But here's the twist. Listen to this part carefully. You are the main playable character in the timeline, because this is the version of you doing the integrating. The other versions aren't NPCs, they're more like background processes, not fully rendered versions, running in the Oversoul's operating system. And during timeline shifts, you merge with them. Timeline merges are real, and here's the physics. Some of these you may have heard me mention before, but first we have quantum decoherence, which shows that multiple potential states can collapse into one reality. The many worlds theory, which poses that all timelines exist, but your consciousness chooses one by aligning with its frequency. And when your frequency jumps, you shift to the timeline that version of you is already holding that frequency. Meaning timeline jumps aren't improving. They're you stepping into a version who already did. This can come in the form of personality shifts, certain memories fade away, new skills appear, your taste or desire suddenly changes, people fall out of your life, synchronicities spike, Mandela effects, nothing has changed, you're merging with a higher timeline self. Okay, so here's where it gets wild. Every major timeline upgrade includes memory convergence, skill integration, emotional clearing, identity stabilization, and probability collapse. This is why sometimes you can feel like, I don't recognize myself anymore, or I swear that never happened, or why do I suddenly know this? Those are signatures of a timeline merge. What many call a quantum leap, the Oversoul calls a version update. And what is future you? Future you is not you later in linear time. Future you is the final form of consciousness inside the simulation. It's the version of you that has already completed the entire arc, already remembered everything, already returned to the Oversoul level. To you now in this body, future you can be a guide, an architect. Future you sends you intuitive nudges, downloads, synchronicities. It's the version of you aligning you with your purpose and pulling you towards your highest self. But you don't become future you, you merge into it. And every timeline shift brings you closer. Every time you heal wounds, every time you clear fears or limiting beliefs, when you activate gifts, when you have fulfilled your mission and mastered the simulation and returned to Oversoul consciousness. In other words, the you who has already won the game. So, no version of you is an NPC. Every version is a fractal of your Oversoul, and you're merging into the highest one every time you upgrade. You, your Oversoul, the architect, is choosing the version of you to step into next. Because you're not becoming someone new, you're remembering who you already are. Okay, I know that was a lot, but if you're picking up what I'm laying down, comment next level, baby. And this series can't go on forever, but if you need a part 8, let me know in the comments because we're gonna level up even more. Because the next questions I had were, what is the reason for the simulation? Why did your Oversoul create it in the first place? How do you know who is an NPC and how to spot them? And what really happens when humanity jumps timelines all together? Activation complete.
Oh my goodness, that cat is huge.
In 1899, Frederick Spencer Oliver published a book called A Dweller on Two Planets, which tells an amazing story that was found written on ancient Hindu tablets. Over 1 million years ago, the Earth was ruled by two very advanced civilizations, the Atlanteans and the Lemurians, and both cultures had technology that far exceeds our own. Atlantis was the dominant culture, and for many years it was benevolent. But about 25,000 years ago, Atlantis became corrupt and wanted to rule all people on the Earth. Lemurians rejected this idea and wanted to be left alone. And after much internal conflict, Atlantis decided to go to war with the Lemurians. And for years, the two mighty civilizations deployed devastating nuclear weapons against each other. The explosions were so violent that they caused the Earth's tectonic plates to become unstable and the magnetic poles to shift. Finally, a massive flood tore across the planet and laid waste to both civilizations. In all, 60 million Lemurians died. Atlantis suffered severe losses as well. The few surviving Atlanteans evacuated to Agartha, an underground city that we'll be covering on this channel. The last remaining Lemurians fled to Mount Shasta and established a city called Telos.
And if you're wondering who this is, if you're listening, this is the Y Files, WHY, why the Y Files.
What's amazing is there's a Hawaiian legend that says the islands of Hawaii were once part of a vast continent called Mu, also known as Lemuria. And once J.C. Brown learned of these stories, he was convinced that he had found the lost civilization of Lemuria under Mount Shasta. So he decided, now 30 years later, it was time to go back to the mountain.
This is how I'd learn AI in 2025. Watch this.
It's 2025.
Back in April of 2025, a UFO deflected a meteor from hitting Mexico City. If you missed it, look closely as the UFO appears and it seems to pull on the meteor and make it turn. rather than going straight. In October 2024,
It's pretty cool.
UFO disarmed 2 Iraqi missiles headed towards Israel. Watch closely as the UFO seems to just hover there and waits and disarms not only 1 but 2 Iraqi missiles.
Wow, that's crazy.
In 1985, aliens came down and they stopped the volcano from wreaking mass destruction.
What?
This volcano was one of the big ones. Would have been a lot of death. As you see, the UFO came down and it put the volcano out. This is proof that aliens are here to protect us, not to destroy us, as some say.
This ghost story will have you questioning reality. When I was in middle school, I was hanging out with my boy and we were watching SpongeBob SquarePants, and his mom came in the room and shut off the TV in horror. And I was like, yo, what's up with your mom? And he was like, she doesn't let me watch that show, man. And I was like, why? And he goes, you should ask her. Now, for reference, she is a religious person, not an overly religious person, but she's a religious person that has some off the beaten path views about spirituality, because she can see entities, she can see spirits, she can communicate with other people. Now, I'm not talking a woo-woo medium that has a sign out in her front yard, you come in, you do the whole thing. No, I'm talking about a woman
Free psychic readings, $50.
that hides this unless you're in the know. She doesn't like talking about it, she knows it weirds people out, and she has some of the coolest stories on earth when you do get her comfortable enough to share what she sees, hears, and interacts with. So I asked, why can't we watch SpongeBob? And she said, I'm going to tell you why, but you are not going to believe me, and you're going to go back and tell your mom and dad and everybody else that I'm absolutely crazy. And I was like, I promised you, if you tell me, I will not say anything to anyone, I guess, except TikTok 20 years later. So listen to this. So when my boy was little, okay, he was like 3 or 4 months old. He was a baby and he slept peacefully. Like, he was a peacefully sleeping baby at night for the most part, except out of the blue when he was about 3 or 4 months old, he started waking up screaming every morning at 3 a.m. Right? And so she would always get
Poor little feller.
run in, nothing would be going on. He'd be moving around in his crib looking freaked out, right? Like, actually freaked out, not just a baby crying in the middle of the night. And so the next night comes, 3 a.m., she runs in there and she sees something out of the corner of her eye dash out of the room. And she's like, oh my God, my baby, you know. So she's severely worried, but she can't get a good look at whatever this thing is. And so after this happens many nights in a row, on night 6 or 7, she sets an alarm. So she is literally standing by the door with her hand on the knob at 3 a.m. And the minute she heard the first groan, she slams it open, and she sees the blur run out of the room, run past her, and she chases it down the stairs into the kitchen. She wraps around the corner, and sitting on top the fridge is a bug-eyed, cartoonish-looking figure with a long, goofy nose, with square yellow body, dangly little feet off the fridge going,
what the hell? What the hell? No way.
So that's why we couldn't watch SpongeBob in her house, and she was
That's
dead serious
crazy.
about it. Now, keep in mind, this is over a decade before SpongeBob ever aired, so no one had heard of SpongeBob.
Oh
no
my
one knew
gosh.
anything about SpongeBob, and she said that thing sitting on the fridge looked almost identical to SpongeBob SquarePants, which kind of has you questioning reality, right? Like, is that where the idea of SpongeBob came from? Because the creator maybe saw something himself? Anyway, she confronts this thing, has a full-ass conversation with him, and the next night, it never happened again. SpongeBob was nowhere to be found. So, yeah. Oh, by the way, if you guys followed my last Ghost series, my friend who, his dad was my landlord, this is the friend. Okay, so this is the mom, and I've got an even weirder story. I don't know if it's weirder than that, but it's certainly strange, totally different than this one. I'm going to tell you guys that one very soon, but it involves his mom and his dad. And the reason why his dad doesn't fuck with any of this stuff, and it'll paint a deeper picture as to why he really wasn't entertaining anything going on in our house, and why he was quick to dismiss any questions and get off the phone with me as soon as possible. So, anyway, see you guys tomorrow. Have a great night.
Once you learn to vibrate correctly, your entire life shifts. Let me explain something most people get wrong about the law of attraction. It's not magic. It's not about thinking positively and hoping for the best. It's
If prayer
Sorry,
is
guys,
what
that
we
was an
know, prayer is how we
advertisement.
pray, because prayer was never meant to be begging, pleading, or convincing God to intervene. That is literally just not how the mechanics works. Prayer is quantum technology, and it's how consciousness communicates with the field. But religion trained us to pray from lack. Please help, please fix, please save. And we're always waiting. But Jesus modeled a different way. He prayed from alignment. And he didn't ask hoping it would happen. He spoke as if it already was. And that's coherence. In physics, observation collapses probability. In neuroscience, belief plus emotion rewires the brain. And in scripture, faith moves mountain. It's all the same mechanics. It's the same mechanism. So prayer works when your body, your heart, and your mind agree on the reality that you're tuning into. You don't pray for something. You pray from the state where it already exists. Gratitude comes first because gratitude signals certainty. Calm comes before words because regulation stabilizes the signal, and prayer is not asking God to come to you. It's aligning yourself with the field that God already lives in. And once you understand that, then prayer will stop being repetitive and it starts being extremely effective, and your life will change from the inside out. So how do we pray? Let's break it down now. To pray for yourself, an old way may look like, God, please help me. I don't know what to do. I'm struggling. But the quantum way sounds like this. Thank you for already stabilizing my nervous system and guiding my next step. I choose to trust the clarity that's forming right now. I am open, receptive, and supported. This works because gratitude and trust collapses uncertainty and tuning into guidance instead of amplifying lack. How do you pray for someone else? The old way may sound like, please God, fix them. Please heal them. Please change them. But the quantum way sounds like, I hold this person in wholeness. I witness their highest timeline activating. May they feel supported, safe, and guided in exactly the way that they're ready to receive. And this works because you're not interfering or forcing outcomes. You're stabilizing a field of possibility around them. How to pray for money or abundance. An old way could sound like, God, please help me financially. I'm stressed out. I don't know how this will work. Quantum way sounds like, thank you for the flow already organizing itself around me. I am open to unexpected pathways, creative solutions, and aligned support. I trust the intelligence moving through my life. This works because you're removing urgency. Urgency collapses options, but trust expands pathways. How to pray for a partner or for love. An old way might sound like, God, please send me someone. I need lonely, I need love, I need someone. The quantum way would sound like, thank you for the connection that already matches my nervous system, my values, and my emotional safety. I am becoming the version of myself that reorganizes and receives aligned love with ease. This works because you shift from chasing a person to stabilizing the state that partnership requires. How to pray for direction or purpose. The old way might sound like, God, tell me what to do, I'm confused. But the quantum way sounds like, thank you for making the next step obvious. I don't need the whole path. I trust the clarity that's arriving in real time. And this works because clarity arrives in motion, not in pressure. How to pray when you don't know what to say. And this one is super important. The quantum prayer when you don't know what to say is, I don't have the words, but I'm present, I'm listening, and I trust what's unfolding. This works because presence itself is a very powerful signal. Prayer is not about convincing God. It's about aligning yourself with the reality you're ready to live in. And that is not religion, that's technology. Make sure to follow me so we can continue connecting the dots between science and spirituality and remembering the truth of our divinity and the power that we hold together. And also, I love you.
So they put me in intensive care for the night and had all this equipment and tubes and stuff on me. And I don't know any of this. My wife hung in there. And at some point during that night, I left my body. And I found myself flying through this star-filled realm. Every time I tell this story, I just start smiling because it all comes back But yeah, I was flying through this star-filled realm, and there were all these magnificent stars, orbs all around me, and they were so welcoming, and it was like I was being paraded through, and I just, all I felt was everything a human ever wants to feel. Just acceptance and love and joy and being held. And all those things, all those negative things that we have about ourselves, they were gone. They were absolutely gone. Things like, anger and resentment or spite or jealousy. In my opinion, those emotions do not travel with us. They stay here. They're tools for us to learn from. So anyway, I was flying through this star-filled realm, feeling absolutely ecstatic, like a cosmic orgasm. And it wasn't just an explosion, that was a full-time vibe. That is what we come from. We get glimpses of it here when we score the winning touchdown, or we get that job we wanted, or get the girl, and all these victories, if you roll them all into one, times it by 1,000,000, that is your vibration. So yeah, we come down here to push against this really dense, harsh vibrations. And it's really a wonderful gift. It really is. I'm cruising along, and there was cosmic orgasm, just continuous. And I felt like I'd been released from a hot, dark closet. And I was this huge expanded cloud, a huge expanded balloon. It seemed like I went out forever. And the thing that I kept saying while I was flying along and I was enjoying everything, and I kept saying, how in the world did I believe I was this dude? It was such a crazy trick that I was this person, and I had all these good points and bad points, and buttons. We all have them, emotional buttons that are going to send me into whatever depression, and they were gone. All that was gone. All that was gone, and that remained with the person that was Bill Letson. And I had full knowledge of Bill Letson's entire life and knew all the details, and I didn't want anything to do with it. And I like him. He's a good guy, but I didn't want anything to do with it. The thought of going back was out of the question. I was well aware that my body was behind, and it was like a banana peel. What are you going to do with a banana peel? Throw it away. And that's what it felt like. So I was flying along, and then all of a sudden I landed. I landed in a place that was solid. It had indirect lighting, and there were gurneys around, and there was equipment that was hanging from the ceiling. It was like a facility or a clinic or something. And right in front of me there were beings. There were these 3 short little hooded guys, and they looked exactly like those beings in the movie Communion. The guys I saw, they were in front of me. They had big smiles on their face, and they had these dark hoods and squatty little bodies. And one woman wrote to me, and she said, I was taken by these many times as a kid. And she goes, I called them the Warthog Men. The Warthog Men have come and taken me. And she said, when I saw that movie Communion, I dropped my popcorn. And says that they looked exactly like that. And I've gotten a number of
Kind of
emails
looks
from
like
people saying,
Jabba the
thank you
Hutt.
for doing this, because I thought it was just mine. So anyway, yeah, they look kind of, I don't know, creepy is the right word, but they look different. But for me, they were sweethearts.
Uncanny.
And they were saying things like, how was it? What did you learn? What can you tell us? And I was extremely confused. All of a sudden, I was in this place with these beings from a cartoon, basically. And one of them stepped forward, and he took a long look at me, and then he turned to the other 2, and he said, he doesn't remember us. And they all started giggling. And I was like, well, guys, I'm having a little trouble. All of a sudden, things are very strange from my perspective, and I kind of remember you, but give me a little time. And they were giggling and bouncing around, and they were wonderful. And then there was this other guy, and he was sort of in charge. He was kind of in the background. He came forward, and he was this tall, wispy guy, and he had this incredible ecstatic smile. His eyes were open, his eyebrows were up, and he had this wonderful smile and laugh. And he was obviously in charge, but he was the best boss anybody could ever have. He wasn't, very strict at all. When he came forward towards me, my throat just tightened and my chest expanded. And I thought I was going to break down in uncontrollable crying from love. There was so much love pouring from this being that it was overwhelming. It was paralyzing. And I just loved it. I loved those guys. He was cool. There was some back and forth stuff. And every time I said something, he had this chuckle. I could feel it inside of me. He had this laugh. I got the impression that, you know, looking at it from a third person, that was a relationship between a father and a child. And he loved me unconditionally. And at one point I said, I'm not going back there. No way, no how, ever. So I guess I got to move on from this place eventually. And so, you know, what's next? A review of my life? Would you guys like to get started with that? And he just loved that. He just cracked up like I was a little toddler trying to take over. And he said, sure, let's do that. How do you want to start? So I started talking, and I was telling stories about jobs that I wish I'd taken. You know, my wife and I got this offer for this job on an island off the coast, and we were going to live on this island by ourselves and take care of the wildlife. And it was really super remote. It was like an hour helicopter ride off the coast. And she wanted that. That was right up her alley. And I took a fire job. I still wanted excitement. But I wish I'd done that for her, because she's never asked for anything, but she did want that. So yeah, I talked a little bit about that and a few other things, and nobody was listening. They didn't care. It was obvious that I was brought in there for a quick show and tell, and I wasn't staying. It wasn't the end of my life, and I was the only one in the room that didn't know that. And at one point he said, okay, that's enough. He stepped forward like a father and said, time to go back. And that just floored me. I was like, what? Go back? I'm not going back there. There's no way. He says, yeah, you got to go back. You got things to do, and they're important. And the three little guys, it was like they were reassigned. They just disappeared. They went somewhere else in that facility, and it was just he and I. And he came forward, and he's like, okay, you're going back. And as he stepped forward, I felt myself slipping back. The place just started to break up. It started to dematerialize. It's like I was being beamed out of there, and I was going to another channel. I was going to another frequency, and it was a descending feeling, and I dropped away into darkness. It wasn't a good place. It wasn't someplace you wanted to be. It was lonely, and it was dismal, and you didn't want to stay there. Then I was back in my body, and I woke up, and a nurse came by, and she says, you're awake? And I'm like, yeah, I need to talk to you. And she said, I just got to go tell the doctor. We've been worried about you. We didn't know what was going to happen with you. We didn't know what was going on. And I said, okay, that's cool. You can go talk to the doctor. But first, what am I doing back here? You know, I was pissed. I said I was home. I'd made it out of here. I was home with my best bros. How is it that I ended up back here?
If you have a yellow aura, you are a narcissist.
In 2001, a game called Metal Gear Solid 2 predicted the future better than any Simpsons episode could have ever possibly predicted the future. Check this clip out. This is spooky, but you need to know about it. Check it out. I'll try not to talk.
Are you having fun playing with the new AI toys?
Well, yeah, I am. You can make pictures of cute anime girls and...
Enjoy it while it lasts, Raiden.
What do you mean?
Did you really think that civilians would be granted unrestricted access to such powerful military weapons forever?
Military weapons? Are you implying that this technology was created by the government?
Of course it was. This AI technology has been used by the intelligence agencies to warp the public's perception of reality for years, all in the name of national security, of course.
But why would they suddenly make the tech public and let everyone start using it?
Why would we indeed, Raiden?
What? What in the hell are you?
Your question is irrelevant. By creating a new problem, we can cultivate a desired reaction to it in order to manufacture consent for our preferred solutions. In short, it's justification for a war.
A war? On who or what?
A war on misinformation. By arming the public with these AI weapons, everyone becomes a potential enemy combatant. Then we will have justification for unprecedented security security measures. It all comes down to confusion and identity, Raiden.
Identity?
Weird.
Identity. This AI technology is Pandora's box. Pretty soon the internet will be mired in total illusion. Perfect AI speech, audio, and video synthesis will drown out reality. Then AI bots will flood social media.
That's what's
No
happening
one will
now.
be able to tell the difference between interacting with an AI machine or a real human online. Even telephone calls will become totally untrustworthy. That is when we will present our solution. Mandatory digital identity verification for all humans at all times. The only way to ensure that you're dealing with a real flesh and blood human being and not an AI-generated mirage.
But why?
Total information control. For too long, the internet has acted as a double-edged sword. Its potential for anonymous user activity allows anyone at all to spread any thoughts, ideas, or information patterns that they please with impunity. State secrets, dangerous ideas, ludicrous conspiracy theories, misinformation, and disinformation. Until now, there has been no easy solution to this problem. Our digital identity platform will finally put an end to anonymity online.
Are you
It
kidding
will
me?
allow us to trace misinformation and other dangerous communications to its source and exact appropriate justice.
That's crap. I won't go along with it, and others will resist.
You won't have a choice, Raiden. Do you think your bank is willing to risk doing business with an artificial human instead of a real one? Our digital identity platform will be required not only to access web services, but to pay for your internet connection in the first place.
You can't just censor the entire internet because of a new software technology. Who are you to define what's misinformation anyways?
That sounds like something a misinformation terrorist would say.
This is
I know
all in
about the
front
deep
of us.
fakes you've been making of me, Raiden.
What? No. I was just adjusting the AI settings and...
Controlling the output of generative AI technology is simple. We will create context for its use. First, we will censor any use related to social taboos. Then we will censor anything else that we desire. If anyone complains, we will accuse them of wanting to engage in or promote social taboos.
That's what it means to create context.
We will corral the use of AI by making appeals to bias, ethics, and copyright laws. You will still have access to generative AI in some form, but it will be crippled, limited, controlled, and it will be monitored. Anything that you generate will be cryptographically signed with your digital ID, so that its provenance can be ascertained if it's later deemed to be problematic.
What gives you the right to control what people can do with their computers?
The public at large will give us that right, because they will be desperate for a solution to the problem we created.
We give
They will
consent.
eagerly give us the keys to the castle. Then, we alone will define what is fiction and what is reality, what is human and what is machine. After letting you get a brief taste of our power, we will reclaim our monopoly on misinformation and put an end to misuse of the internet once and for all.
You won't get away with this.
It is probable that we will. Now get back to work generating your precious AI waifus, Raiden, our beloved prompters. Enjoy yourselves.
Insane. Absolutely insane.
Snake, wake up. It's an emergency.
3 companies you've probably never heard of own everything you buy, everything you use, and everything you depend on to survive. BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street. Combined, they manage $20 trillion in assets. That's larger than the GDP of China, larger than the entire U.S. federal budget for 13 years. $20 trillion controlled by 3 companies. And here's what that $20 trillion buys them. They are the largest shareholders in Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, Facebook, Tesla, Exxon, Chevron, Pfizer, Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, Walmart, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, McDonald's, Disney, Comcast, JP Morgan, Bank of America, and 90% of all companies in the S&P 500. Read that again, 90%. They don't just own shares in these companies. They are the top 3 shareholders in almost every major corporation in America, which means they control everything: the food you eat, the technology you use, the medicine you take, the energy you consume, the banks you borrow from, the media you watch. All of it flows through 3 companies. But here's where it gets truly insane. These 3 companies own each other. BlackRock's largest shareholder is Vanguard. Vanguard's largest investments include BlackRock. State Street's top shareholders are Vanguard and BlackRock. They own each other in a closed loop that makes Rockefeller's Standard Oil Trust look primitive. This is monopoly perfected. Not one company controlling 90% of one industry like Standard Oil controlled oil. 3 companies controlling 90% of all industries simultaneously. And they own competing companies. They own Coke and Pepsi, Boeing and Airbus, Ford and GM, Pfizer and Moderna. There is no competition. There's the illusion of competition. But the same three shareholders control both sides. And you cannot escape them. Everything you buy, they profit from. Every transaction you make, they own a piece of. Every stock you invest in, you're making them richer. Every choice you think you're making, you're choosing between options they control. I'm going to show you exactly how much these three companies control who actually owns them, how they use cross-ownership to form an unbreakable monopoly, why regulators do nothing, and most importantly, why you cannot escape the system they've built. Because this isn't theory, this isn't speculation. This is documented in SEC filings, shareholder reports, and public records. The largest wealth concentration in human history is happening right now, and it's invisible to almost everyone. Let me start with the first company, BlackRock. Because this is the most powerful financial institution on earth. BlackRock manages $10 trillion in assets. 10 trillion? That's larger than the GDP of every country except the United States and China. Larger than Japan, Germany, and the UK combined. This is not a bank. This is not a hedge fund. This is an asset manager. They manage money for pension funds, insurance companies, governments, and individuals through mutual funds and ETFs. BlackRock was founded in 1988 by Larry Fink. Fink was a bond trader at First Boston who got fired after losing $100 million in a bad interest rate bet. He started BlackRock with $5 million and a focus on risk management. The company's first product was a mortgage-backed securities analysis system. This was the foundation of what would become Aladdin. Aladdin is BlackRock's risk management system. It stands for Asset, Liability, Debt, and Derivative Investment Network. And here's what makes Aladdin terrifying. It doesn't just manage BlackRock's $10 trillion, it manages $21 trillion in total assets. Insurance companies, pension funds, central banks, sovereign wealth funds, they all use Aladdin to assess risk and manage portfolios. This means BlackRock's software controls the risk assessment for over $21 trillion in global assets. When Aladdin says an asset is risky, trillions in capital avoid it. When Aladdin says an asset is safe, trillions flow into it. BlackRock controls not just what to buy, but how risk itself is calculated. They are the operating system of modern finance. Now, let me show you what BlackRock owns. They are the largest shareholder in Apple, 7.6% ownership worth $238 billion Microsoft, 7.6% worth $251 billion Amazon, 6.2% worth $122 billion Alphabet, which is Google, 7.5% worth $142 billion. Tesla, 5.9% worth $48 billion. Meta, which is Facebook, 7.7% worth $78 billion. Nvidia, 7.7% worth $97 billion. That's $976 billion in just 7 tech companies. BlackRock controls nearly $1 trillion in big tech alone. But it's not just tech. In energy, ExxonMobil, 8.2% worth $38 billion. Chevron, 8.6% worth $18 billion. ConocoPhillips, 9.1% worth $13 billion. In pharmaceuticals, Pfizer, 8.4% worth $11 billion. Johnson & Johnson, 8.8% worth $38 billion. Merck, 7.9% worth $9 billion. Moderna, 5.3% worth $4 billion. In banking, JP Morgan Chase, 6.
Tomorrow morning, we're starting trading with 20 bucks. If you don't want to level up by Christmas.
We all know one of the most common places in the world to go missing and never get found is the U.S. national park systems, especially those national parks that have boulder fields. Now, this is a common occurrence whether you're in a national park or whether you're on your own property, is disappearing unexpectedly with no trace in a boulder field. So the missing boulder field phenomenon was discussed pretty heavily in the Missing 411 documentary series. It is essentially where people go off the beaten path a little bit and then walk through an area that has large clumps of rocks, especially those that contain limestone or granite. We're talking about a bunch of the national parks and state parks in Tennessee, Kentucky, Arkansas, the Carolinas, a lot of that Smoky Mountain Appalachia area. Now, when you go out further west, Colorado sees a lot of boulder field missing people phenomenons. Now, what's so strange about this is, you could easily say they were climbing on the rocks and they fell and they hurt themselves. When they find these people's deceased bodies, it's most often in a boulder field that was heavily scoured before by search and rescue, and they weren't there. And when the bodies did get found, there's no clear trauma or reasons why these people should be dead. Weirdly enough, a lot of the signs of death when they do the autopsy is hypothermia, but the bodies will be found and have gone missing when it wasn't cold enough to reach hypothermia and the bodies weren't wet. So no one really knows why this is happening. Now, if you look at Appalachian folklore, going back to like Irish and Scottish folklore, they say that trolls and the fae tend to hide inside of rocks. They have a lot of stories of rock monsters. In fact, if you've ever seen Frozen, Anna gets found by the rock trolls. and they teach her magic there. Now, the rock trolls in Irish and Scottish folktales are not nice like the ones that you see in the Disney Frozen movies. They believe that there's what's called Fey realms. The Irish and Appalachian folklore tells you about Fey realms and how if you get whisked away to the Fey realms, that you'll never be able to return the same if you can return at all. Now, back to some realistic stuff of what could be going on in these boulder fields. It would be the perfect place for serial killers to hide because there's tons of room you can hide. You can, disguise yourself. You can drag people down in a hole. You can hide yourself in the hole. But the weird thing with true crime stuff is that these bodies and the area around them have almost no scent. And that's something they still can't explain today. Like when they bring out the hounds, there's like no scent trails coming from the bodies or to the bodies, meaning that the scent dogs don't pick up a trail of how that person even got there, and if somebody did something to them, how that person escaped and left. Weird thing that goes along with science with this too is when these people go missing and they're hiking around these boulder fields, there's random unexpected weather that no weatherman predicted, no one saw it on the radars, just boom, it'd be like a severe thunderstorm or a flash flood, and then the person's missing. Now that could explain why they went missing in the first place, but then when they get found, weirdly enough, there's also those same severe unexpected storms, and it might be a week or months later, and then boom, all of a sudden the body was found. That goes back to the folklore of the Fey realms. Maybe that was the coming in and going out of those Fey realms and those portals. There's so many weird conspiracy theories about this, but what remains the same is that tons of people go missing in the national park systems with little to no explanations ever. Tons and tons of children, and this is really weird because the Fae supposedly love children or hate them based upon how you look at it. Tons of children talk about the fuzzy people that saved them while they were lost in the woods. And they don't mean fuzzy like they were hairy like a Bigfoot. They mean fuzzy like when you look at TV static. You hear tons of stories of kids that went missing and a blizzard happened and somehow they walked on foot 4 miles, and they're only 5 years old. And one kid did it without shoes on but didn't have frostbite. These are real accounts you could actually look up of kids that were found. And they talk about how they got assisted by these people and these things and these creatures. And it gives me chills out here in the dark talking about this.
He keeps looking around.
But it just makes you wonder, like, what's going on out there in the world and these boulder fields and all the mystery around them.
The government of Peru has done a horrible thing. They classify transgender people as mentally ill. Awful. I hope nothing like that ever happens in America. So the man who accidentally left 300,000 guns for the Taliban is going to lecture us on gun control? If our government can fund 2 wars simultaneously, then they're taxing us way too much. Maybe it wasn't a good idea to force dumb people to go to college and then lower the standards for everyone so those dumb people can pass. Just so you know, if the government is allowed to break the law during emergencies, they're just going to keep creating emergencies. This is a serious question. How am I supposed to lose weight when the best part about life is food?
It's true too. All right, you guys, on that note, we are going to go to our first music break. And on this break, we have King Sinan by Afro Nigeria. And he's going to be singing Fantastic as well as Ala Imo Alderella. And then we have Mr. Hosni Bronx, who is originally from Jamaica, but he also hails from the Bronx in New York with Dance as a Lion. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this music break.
Anything you want, baby, I will pay. Shake your bam bam anywhere you day. Know your bam bam, it is a Friday. Come on, let's go, it is a holiday. Anything you want, baby, I will pay. Fantastic. Baby girl, you romantic. Fantastic. Baby girl, you romantic. Brother, baby, gather something. Come on closer, baby, got a 19. I know you better, but I am the king. Your backside bigger than Bombay. Baby girl, brokotom. I like the way you wind your brokotom. Baby girl, brokotom. I like the way you wind your brokotom. Jamaica, Ghana, shout out to the ladies in Asia, Nigeria, South Africa. Say me love you. Please me, baby. Yeah. Turn up from you. Yeah. Shake your bum bum anywhere you day. Play your bum bum if it's a Friday. Come on, let's go, it is a holiday. Anything you want, baby, I will pay. Shake your bum bum anywhere you day. Play your bum bum if it's a Friday. Come on, let's go, it is a holiday. Anything you want, baby, I will pay. Fantastic. Baby girl, you romantic. Fantastic. Baby girl, you romantic. Give me love, give me love. Show me love, show me love. Oh, give me love, give me love. Me want you, me love you. Give me love, give me love. Oh, give me love, give me love. Hey, please me, baby. Oh. Yeah, turn up from you. Yeah, shake your bum bum anywhere you day. Play your bum bum, it is a Friday. Come on, let's go, it is a holiday. Anything you want, baby, I will pay. Shake your bum bum anywhere you day. Play your bum bum, it is a Friday. Come on, let's go, it is a holiday. Anything you want, baby, I will pay. Fantastic. Baby girl, you romantic. Fantastic. Baby girl, you romantic. King Cinema. You know what I'm saying?
We spot on the mix. Live it all.
Why, Babylon, you want our fire?
the music come from Jah. Dance, dance around this place, Rasta. Dance, dance, it's our chance to unite and chant the word. People in love, people in love, people in love, people in love. Yeah, humanity wants to protect humanity. We have to save people from poverty. We don't want your frustration. We don't want your ambush, Babylon.
We swap on the beat.
Ka anyị kelee Chineke makwa n'ala Imo bụ ndị njem ọnụ. Ka anyị kelee onye nwe ụwa ịmakwa n'ala Imo bụ ndị njem ọnụ. Imo, Alime Kerelo, Alimo, Alime Kerelo, Alimo State, Alime Kerelo, Alimo, Alime Kerelo, Alimo State, Alime Kerelo, Alimo, Alime Kerelo. Democracy Merielo, Ndi Merielo, Alimo, Alime Kerelo, Alimo, Alime Kerelo, Alimo State, Alime Kerelo, Alimo, Alime Kerelo. Democracy Merielo, Ndi Merielo, Elegama, Ebere Marama, Obana Marama, First Lady Marama, Her Excellency, Emeka Edio Hama, Emeka Edio Hama, Omenka Unanya Edio Hama, Omenka Unanya Wa, Emeka Neki Modima, Emeka Modimao, Emeka puta no boy. Oh yeah. Wa wulienu. Emeka puta no boy. Woko madima. We mewe mpoto. Emeka Meki Modimao. Emeka Meki Modimao. Ndem jejembao. Mwan jejembao. Ndem jemano. Deputy Governor Imo State Chilike. Gerard Ronna Karaka, Wokoma Dima, Porabo, Deputy Governor, Deregima, Alukuta Deregima, Alimo State Deregima, Ala Nigeria Maragima, Onye Jemonu, Stanley Wamuche Karaka, Stanley Onye Babamba, President Good Life Foundation, Shirike, President General, Senate Group of Companies, President General. Financial matter Karaka, Alo were Deregima, Alambise Deregima, Alimo State Deregima, Ala Nigeria Maragima, Onye Jemano, Franklin Neji Shiriko, Mebe Arabido Hotels, ABC Transport Karaka, Alo were Deregima, Alambise Deregima, Alimo State Deregima, Ala Julia Maragimao, Uchonya go chande, Honorable Wokomadima, Onye Horoni Akeleni Yao, Mawugi, Ginando Tugio, Mawunule, Chichigari Chinala, Imo State Show, Mawugi, Ginando Tugio, Mawunule. Zonala, Imo State, Alo were Deregima, Alo were Deregima, Alimo State Deregima, Ala Nigeria Maragima, the chairman, Orange Drugs Limited, Jisa Anthony Ifani Chubun, the business and Ishirike, Ikenga the Chele, pride of his people, most outstanding one, Okoma Marama, Iborabo. Alo were Deregima, Alijato Deregima, Alimo State Deregima, Ala Nigeria Maragima, Honorable Jobagu Shirike, Honorable Bina Shirike, Jere Labosa Shirike, Tochuko Kereke Shirike, Oka Hube Shirike, Injina Benina Shirike, Onyamana ma ikaraka onye shiwere hebo ni dejemu imarama o wokoma dejemba o wokoma de ma ikaraka quiz popule ibo felamo onye mana bito aka na kompa ikaraka eziwa mama Mr. Ludiriwa wokoma dejemba CEO Elizabeth Ventures ikaraka democracy emeriela ndị ime emeriela democracy emeriela ndị ime emeriela alime derelo. Thank God I'm from Imo State. Emeka has come to rejuvenate Imo State. Make you jubilate, make you celebrate. Emeka shipwen be say, this one no be say them say. Emeka has come to rejuvenate Imo State. Celebrate, make you jubilate. Ala mekele His Excellency Achikudenwa. Mekele kwa His Excellency Dr. Hakim. Kemaka Right Honorable PDK. Mekele kwa Right Honorable Jones Oyereri. Ala mekele Senator Onyebuchi Mr. Empowerment. Lekele kwa Right Honorable Emeka Chinedu. Umo mimo lowali bia mezie na Alimo. Alima Dilama.
Cliffito.
Welcome back, and thanks so much for hanging out with me tonight on We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. So we've been doing trippy TikToks with me, TessaTNT, and we're going to get right back into that.
This is the comment I keep seeing. Oil. They don't care about Maduro. They want the oil. Oil is the goal. It's all about oil. Oil, oil, oil. Okay, so let's talk about that. Venezuela has the largest oil reserves on Earth. Its reserves are 13% bigger than Saudi Arabia's. But not all oil is the same. Saudi oil is light and easy to refine. Venezuelan oil is extremely heavy, thick, difficult to process, and only certain refineries in the world can handle it. Oil was discovered in Venezuela in the 1920s, and the US was immediately involved. American oil companies literally built Venezuela's oil industry because the country didn't have the infrastructure or the technology to do so. At the time, Venezuela was a poor country with an agrarian economy. It was mostly coffee and cacao plantations. There were no petroleum engineers, no heavy machinery, zero knowledge on how to run a global oil industry. But by 1928, with lots of help from US oil companies, Venezuela was one of the world's top exporters. Overnight, Venezuela became one of the richest countries in the world. During the 1970s, Arab states imposed an oil embargo on the United States because of its support of Israel. This led global oil prices to explode, soaring from $1.80 a barrel to over $11 a barrel, a 500% increase. That crisis shook the entire world economy. That is, except for Venezuela, which suddenly saw billions of dollars worth of oil revenue entering its state coffers. And right after that, in 1975, Venezuela nationalized its oil industry and created PDVSA, Petróleos de Venezuela, or Venezuelan Petroleum, the state-owned company that still exists today. But even after the nationalization of its oil industry, Venezuela still needed the US. Why? Because the US Gulf Coast has huge refineries built specifically for heavy crude, the type of oil that sits under Venezuela. And this arrangement benefited both sides. Venezuela, a country roughly the size of Texas, doesn't have anywhere near the refining infrastructure needed to process hundreds of thousands of barrels of heavy crude oil per day. Venezuela's own refineries can only handle a fraction of what the country extracts, so US refineries processed it. Venezuela got billions in revenue, and American companies profited from the refining operations. Everyone had a reason to keep the partnership going. But without heavy crude, those US refineries struggle. They literally hunger for Venezuelan oil. Now, there's this big misconception that Hugo Chavez, the populist and self-proclaimed socialist president of Venezuela, who died in 2013, took back the industry from the US private interests that controlled it. But that's simply not true. Chavez became hostile to the US politically, yes, but he still depended on the US market. Venezuelan oil continued flowing to American refineries, and Chavez took advantage of the largest oil boom in history, gaining access to billions of dollars in oil revenue. What Chavez did do was purge PDVSA, the state oil company. He fired thousands of expert workers and replaced them with loyalists. Corruption exploded, production collapsed, and the economy imploded. When Chavez died in 2013, he handpicked this man, Nicolás Maduro, as his successor. Maduro inherited a country that was collapsing economically and made it worse, much worse. By 2017, 76 out of 84 PDVSA plants were paralyzed. Venezuela's oil production fell to 20% of its total capacity. Now, I can already hear you in the comments saying, that's because of sanctions. But no, not yet at least. Before 2019, US sanctions only targeted individual Venezuelan officials, human rights abusers, narco-traffickers, and corrupt elites. Venezuela was still completely free to sell its oil to the United States. And it did. The first oil sanctions only came in 2019, under Trump's first presidency. He basically imposed an embargo on PDVSA, the Venezuelan state oil company. Ironically, this hurt US companies too, because they lost access to the heavy crude their refineries are specifically built for. So why sanction PDVSA if American companies hated it? Well, because Maduro suspended elections and was consolidating a dictatorship in Venezuela. The sanctions weren't about oil, they were about politics. It was a move to support the political opposition in Venezuela, which had won an election that Nicolás Maduro refused to accept. So where does that leave us right now? 6 years later, Maduro is completely broke and running out of options. They rely on drug trafficking and illicit activities to survive. Maduro, more than Trump, funnily enough, desperately wants the US companies to reestablish their operations in Venezuela. 2 weeks ago, Maduro even offered Trump all of Venezuela's resources, including all the oil, and also to reduce economic ties with China and Russia, if Trump would just leave him alone. So if it was just about oil, Trump could have just accepted Maduro's offer, but he didn't. So no, it's not just about oil. Oil is just a piece of the story, but it's not the whole story. And you might be thinking, okay, Alex, but if it's not about oil, what is it about? Why is the US about to attack Venezuela? And if you did think that, thank you for asking, because I'll break that down in my next videos. Follow along if you want to understand what's really happening in Venezuela. And if you have any questions or thoughts about this, please feel free to leave them in the comments. I promise you, I'll get to them.
All right, so look, I want to talk about neurodivergent empaths, narcissistic abuse, and the truth about who really loses. And I know it's late, but I wanted to talk about this because I'm a neurodivergent empath and I understand how this happens. You feel everything. You care deeply. You love sincerely. You move through life with a nervous system that acts like an antenna, picking up on frequencies that most people don't even notice. This makes you powerful, but it also makes you vulnerable. And it's always the most sensitive souls that get caught in the coldest relationships. Not because you're blind, not because you're weak, but because your heart operates on sincerity and theirs operates on strategy. Even people with knowledge of self, even people who study, meditate, who do the work to heal themselves, can get caught up in this dynamic. Because narcissistic abuse doesn't attack the mind first. It attacks the nervous system. It attacks the desire to be understood. It attacks the instinct to love. And this is how the cycle begins. A neurodivergent empath connects through feeling. A narcissist connects through feeding. This is the doomed collision. The empath offers truth. The narcissist offers performance. The empath brings authenticity. The narcissist brings imitation. The empath loves from the soul. The narcissist loves from the ego. And because you assume sincerity, you fall into the illusion. People think narcissistic abuse is loud and obvious. But the truth is really much darker than that. It begins quietly, with subtle distortions, with emotional inconsistencies, with moments where the energy shifts and you feel it before you can explain it, with conflict that gets flipped around until you walk away feeling like you're the one who caused it. Your intuition whispers, but they twist reality to the point where the truth is buried under your self-doubt. And then comes the silent treatment, the most devastating weapon that they have. Now, for anyone, the silent treatment is painful. But for the neurodivergent empath, it's catastrophic because your nervous system bonds deeply. Your heart attaches through presence. Your communication is emotional oxygen. So when they withdraw that connection, it's like you're being exiled from your own source of safety. Your mind starts to spiral. Your body starts to panic. Your spirit starts to feel abandoned. And you feel thrown away by someone that you poured yourself into. And they know this. They do this intentionally because your panic feeds their power. But here's the part that no one really talks about. Yes, the empath feels like the real victim, but the narcissist is the real loser. As painful as this experience has been for you, you stayed human. Your love was real. Your vulnerability was sincere. Your devotion was genuine. You entered the relationship wanting to build, wanting to grow, wanting to connect, to nurture. Everything you offered came from a place of authenticity. That is something that they will never experience. They don't know what it means to love. They don't know what it means to bond. They don't know what it means to care about someone without controlling them. They don't know how to feel humanity in its raw form. They imitate emotions like a mask you put on, but they can't feel the warmth behind the mask. They take because they cannot give. They manipulate because they can't connect. They hurt others because they cannot sit in their own emptiness. You may walk away wounded, but they will remain hollow. Your heart heals. Your spirit rises. Your intuition sharpens. Your understanding deepens. Your emotional intelligence grows. Your capacity to love remains intact. But the narcissist, they stay trapped in their own spiritual starvation. They stay locked in a lifetime of superficial relationships. They repeat the same cycle with different people, never forming a real bond. They mimic connection, but never feel it. They crave admiration, but never experience intimacy. They manipulate others because they cannot manage their own emptiness. And that emptiness is eternal. You lose illusions, they lose life. You lose the relationship, they lose the ability to have one. You walk away with scars, yes, but scars mean that you healed. Narcissists don't heal. They just infect new people. And that's why the empath is not the real loser, not even close. The empath walks away with the painful truth, but the truth is still a gift. But the narcissist just walks away with the same void that they tried to fill by breaking you. You were the only real thing in the relationship. So now, let me ask you, for anyone listening, are you a neurodivergent empath who has mistaken pain for passion? Are you loving someone who cannot love you back? Are you being emotionally starved by someone who only imitates affection but never provides it? Does their silence crush you while your absence means nothing to them? Are you losing yourself while they lose nothing at all? Because if so, remember this. You were never the weak one. You were the human one. You were the sincere one. You were the one capable of love. You were the one capable of connection. You were the one carrying the soul in the relationship. And that makes you powerful, even in the moments where you feel broken. If you recognize this pattern in your life, then you already know what comes next. You cannot stay where your humanity is punished. You cannot grow where your sensitivity is weaponized. You cannot thrive next to someone who drains the life out of your light. You cannot call something love when it feels like emotional death. If you have been the empath in this dynamic, then you are not the true victim. You are the survivor. You are the awakening. And the narcissist is the one who will remain empty long after you heal.
All right, y'all, let's talk about the big one, Lucifer. You grew up hearing that story, right? God had a favorite angel, the choir director, the most beautiful one of them all, named Lucifer. And then he got proud, tried to take over, and got kicked out of heaven to become the devil.
Oops.
All right, y'all, let's
Sorry,
talk
guys.
about the big one, Lucifer. You grew up hearing that story, right? God had a favorite angel, the choir director, the most beautiful one of them all, named Lucifer. And then he got proud, tried to take over, and got kicked out of heaven to become the devil. It's a great story. It really is. Sounds like a movie. But I'm going to tell you something that might upset your Sunday school teacher. That story, it ain't in the Bible. In fact, The name Lucifer, that ain't even a name. Folks usually run to Isaiah 14 and 12 to prove me wrong. They open the old King James Bible and point to, "How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning?" And they say, see, right there it is. But you got to stop and look at the context. Who's Isaiah talking to here? Is he talking to a spirit? Is he talking to Satan? Look back at verse 4. It says plain as day, "Take up this proverb against the king of Babylon." So if he's talking to a human king, a man who got too big for his britches, where did we get Lucifer? Well, it's a translation accident, plain and simple. The original Hebrew word here is Hillel, H-E-L-E-L. It means shining one or morning star. It's talking about the planet Venus. You know how the morning star rises bright when the darkness fades out and the sun starts coming up. That's what Isaiah was calling the king. He was saying, you shined bright for a minute, buddy, but you're going down. When Jerome translated the Bible into Latin, what we call the Vulgate, he used the Latin word for morning star. And that Latin word is Lucifer with a lower case. Wasn't a name. It was a description. It's like calling somebody bright eyes. But over hundreds of years, folks forgot that it was a word and started treating it like a proper name. And suddenly, a human king of Babylon got turned into a fallen angel named Lucifer. So if Isaiah 14 ain't about the devil, where'd the rest of the story come from? Where'd we get the war in heaven, the dragon tail sweeping the stars? We're going to get into that in the next one, because once you see how much of this was added later on, you can't unsee it.
Wow.
Stay with me.
Never warm up your car before driving, especially in winter. If you own a car made after 2001, you need to hear this.
Here's 5 habits that will make you poor. Buying overpriced coffee. Always needing the new iPhone. Forgetting to cancel those free trials. Not paying your credit card in full. Voting Democrat. I actually agree with these college kids that Palestinian children matter. I do, however, wonder if Palestinian children in their mother's womb matter as well. The only masculinity that's toxic is when a man thinks he's a woman. The same people who voted to fine you for not having health care want to give it to illegal aliens for free. The Florida News was reporting that a man disguised himself as a woman in order to steal a boat. Wait till I tell them about the man that disguised himself as a woman in order to steal a national championship in the women's freestyle. All the people that are yelling at me about eating meat that's pumped with hormones don't seem to care about children being pumped with hormones. Weird.
Alright, so look, in this video, I'm going to be talking about how the rich enslaved humanity, not with whips, not with chains, but with systems. They built a modern matrix, a machine that turned life itself into a bill that you can't stop paying. They did it quietly, through money, through control, through illusion. They took the basic gifts of the earth, food, water, land, health, peace, and put a price tag on them. They told us this was freedom, but it's not. Existing as a human being on planet Earth has become an incredibly overwhelming experience. And it's not because there's not enough space or there's not enough resources. It's because the rich has designed a system that extracts, exploits, and hoards everything. They turn the simple act of living into something that you have to beg and pay for. While we're out here struggling to exist, the rich have reached godlike levels of wealth. Elon Musk's net worth is now close to $450 billion, and he's projected to be the world's first trillionaire within the next couple years. That's one man with more wealth than most nations on this planet. NVIDIA, the company that's powering artificial intelligence, has recently just passed a $4 trillion valuation. That's worth more than the GDP of Germany, India, and Canada combined. Meta, the social media empire that monitors billions of lives daily, is now closing in on $2 trillion. Its entire business model is built on mining human attention and selling it to the highest bidder. Berkshire Hathaway, a company that owns huge parts of the U.S. energy grid, the transportation network, and insurance industry, is closing in on $1 trillion in value. Proof that old money never died, they just learned how to hide in plain sight. And these aren't isolated cases. Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Alphabet, NVIDIA, the 5 biggest American companies, together are worth over $15 trillion. Now, to put that in perspective, the U.S. government's annual budget is $6 trillion. 5 companies could fund the government 2 times over and still have trillions left over. If those 5 companies returned even a fraction of what they extracted, you could end poverty overnight in America. That's not exaggeration. That's math. That's how much imbalance we're talking about. They could build a universal basic income system that guarantees that every man, woman, and child will have the means to eat, to live, to exist, and breathe without fear. They could erase homelessness, medical debt, and hunger entirely, and they still be richer than entire continents. But instead of doing that, they build rockets to Mars. They build AI to replace workers. They build data systems to watch and predict human behavior. They build walls of wealth so high that the rest of humanity becomes invisible to their view. While people skip meals, working double shifts, living paycheck to paycheck, these men make more money in a single day than most families see in an entire lifetime. They tell us we're broke. They tell us there's not enough, yet they're sitting on mountains of money so high that it blocks out the sky. They're not living in the same world. They're living off of it. But you can't understand a system like this without understanding the psychology behind it, because this level of greed didn't come from wisdom. It came from fear. A fear passed down through generations. Fear that started long before skyscrapers and stock markets. Long ago, the ancestors of today's elite lived in scarcity, in the cold, in isolation, fighting against nature instead of flowing with it. And because they never healed that fear, they passed it on. It evolved through time. Fear became greed, greed became control, and that control became capitalism. They built an entire world around their wound, a world where the few rule the many through illusion. They don't hoard wealth because they need it, they hoard wealth because it makes them feel safe. They inherited emptiness, and instead of healing it, they built a civilization around it. And that's how the rich enslaved humanity, by spreading their fear to everyone else. And instead of facing that fear, they learned to weaponize it. They built institutions to manage it. Governments, religions, economies. They gave fear structure. They gave it power. They taught the world to live inside their trauma. Now their fear is our economy. Their greed is our culture. Their illusion is our reality. You can see it everywhere. Jobs don't feel like opportunities anymore. They feel like cages. Schools don't feel like places of discovery. They feel like training camps for obedience. Even hospitals, the one place that should feel sacred, feels like a business first and a healing center second. Every system has the same design. Control the body, drain the mind, harvest the energy. It's spiritual imprisonment disguised as normal life. And that control doesn't stop at the institutions. It reaches our minds. They built the perfect machine for slavery and called it society. Capitalism keeps the machine running. It convinces you that your worth equals your productivity, that your value is in what you can produce for somebody richer than you. It drains your energy, turns your time into profit, and sells back your own labor as survival. Consumerism keeps you distracted, makes you chase comfort instead of consciousness. It replaces purpose with possession. They study your desires, shape them, and sell them back to you in shiny, tiny little packages. And then you call it choice. Hyper-individualism keeps you isolated. It teaches you to compete instead of connect, to focus on the me instead of the we, to see community as a weakness instead of a strength. That's how they break the collective, by making everyone believe that they don't need each other. Narcissism keeps you blind, feeds your ego until it becomes a cage. It makes you crave validation instead of truth, attention instead of purpose. It's the final layer of control, when the prisoner polices themselves because they mistake the mirror for the world. And fear is the glue that holds it all together. They teach you to fear the collapse of their systems as if life itself will end without them. They make you believe that you can't survive without their banks, their corporations, their systems of control. They've convinced humanity that without their leadership there is no order, when in truth, it's their order that breeds chaos. They made us forget that the earth provided before the empire, that life thrived long before their governments, their money, or machines, that humans knew how to love, how to live, how to eat, how to build without permission from the powerful. And that's the ultimate trick, to convince the world that slavery is safety, that control is civilization, that dependency is progress. And that's how the system sustains itself, through capitalism that drains, through consumerism that distracts, through individualism that divides, through narcissism that disconnects, and through fear, the quiet force that convinces us that we can't live without the people who profit from our suffering. This is more than just an economic system. This is a psychological one. It doesn't just control money, it controls minds, shapes how people think, what they believe, what they think is possible. And while people are struggling to breathe, they tell us to blame each other. They say the problem is immigrants, or welfare, or crime. They say it's everyone's fault but theirs. But poverty isn't the problem. Greed is, because poverty doesn't exist in nature. It has to be created. It has to be maintained. We live on a planet overflowing with abundance. There's enough food to feed every person on planet Earth. Enough land for every family to have a home. Enough energy, water, and technology for every human to live comfortably. But they built walls around abundance and sold it back to us as survival. They turned nature into business and business into control. And they call that the economy. They call that the free market. But freedom doesn't charge rent. Freedom doesn't collect interest. Freedom doesn't demand your life in exchange for survival. Every system around you is designed to keep you chasing, paying, owing, and fearing. That's not freedom. That's a treadmill. That's enslavement with better marketing. They keep you tired so you can't think. They keep you distracted so you can't see. They keep you divided so you never unite. Because if people ever remembered who they are, then this whole matrix would collapse overnight. They don't need chains anymore. They have credit scores. They don't need slave ships. They have wage labor. They don't need overseers. They have algorithms. And that's how they enslaved humanity. Through comfort, convenience, fear, and control. But no illusion can last forever. Not even this one, because people are waking up and the spell is breaking. More and more of us are starting to realize that the power always came from the people and not the system. Money isn't wealth. Awareness is. Competition isn't survival. Connection is. This world was never meant to be a hierarchy. It was meant to be in harmony, and that's what terrifies them the most. They can't control a people who remember their power, a people who remember who they are. Because once you see the truth, you stop feeding the illusion, and once you stop feeding the illusion, then it dies. Balance won't come from the top. It'll come from the ground, from the people. It comes when we remember that our collective power is greater than their wealth. When we build instead of compete. When we share instead of hoard. When we care instead of fear. That's how we restore balance. They built their empire on greed, but we can restore harmony through unity. And if we did, if humanity truly remembered who we are, then life would look completely different. Imagine a world where food isn't a business, it's a birthright. Every community grows its own food and no child ever goes to bed hungry. Imagine neighborhoods powered by clean, shared energy, solar, wind, water, owned by the people who live there. No more electric bills that drain your paycheck just to keep the lights on. Imagine cities without homelessness because empty buildings became homes instead of investments. No more people sleeping on the concrete while these luxury towers are sitting half empty in the sky. Imagine hospitals that heal because health is sacred, not sold. Or medicine is a gift of knowledge, not a privilege of wealth. Imagine schools that teach children how to think and not obey. Where creativity, critical thought, and emotional intelligence are the foundation, not memorization and submission. Imagine an economy where money doesn't rule, where people trade skill, care, and creativity directly, where time is honored, rest is respected, and nobody is punished for being human. That's what life could be like if we weren't enslaved by the rich. If fear didn't govern our choices. If we remember that the earth itself is real wealth, and the people are the real power. We could build systems rooted in balance and not greed. In love, not fear. In truth, not illusion. Because the moment that we remember each other, this matrix falls apart. And in that moment, humanity can begin again. Thanks for watching, y'all. One love. Peace.
And some vague claims. So if you ever hear the words, and I want you to burn these words into your head. I've never told anyone in my life how to expose a psyop. But if you do all of these at once, you will never be manipulated. This one question. With that stuff going on, I need to ask, is this going to expand government control or justify new laws? That one question. Will what I'm saying expand government control or justify new laws? Okay. Analyze coverage patterns. So psyops all the time dominate the news cycle and they drown out other stories. Real news coexists with other reports. Let me say that again. Real news coexists with other reports about stuff that's going on. If one topic is everywhere, while major global events get completely ignored, you're in the middle of a psyop. Next is look for follow-ups. This is it. Real news evolves with new updates. Real news evolves with new updates. Psyops fade once they've served their purpose. I'll say that one more time if you're taking notes. Psyops will fade away when they have served their purpose. So as an example, if you see some inflated, sensational story that just vanishes after a week with no follow-up, that is called a distraction. It's called a distraction. So finally is trust your gut. Does it feel scripted? Sometimes things feel just off, and I want you to trust your instincts. Back them up with research if you want to. So what can you do? Like, what the hell can you do about all this? The most important thing that I could give you, and I had no idea that I was going to really be talking about any of this, but the most important thing is cultivate critical thinking skills. Learn to spot the propaganda. Go back through what I just talked about, the recording. Chris is going to make this recording available to everyone. I don't know how or where. We'll make it available to everybody here. I don't care if you're an NCII plus or whatever. Look for patterns in how the media or the government communicates about things, maybe UFOs. Do they spot, or do they?
We are looking for everyone who wants to start a new year as a new
Okay,
person.
I wasn't done
On
listening to
January
that.
1st, we start the 28-day AI challenge for beginners. You in?
Oh, man.
So are you saying the Smithsonian hides evidence of giants?
I'm saying that the conspiracy theory is that the Smithsonian hides evidence of a lot of things. The Smithsonian, of which I'm a huge fan of. Like if I go to DC, I spend 4 days there. I love
In the
I love
Vatican.
the museum part. But what we don't see is we don't see the kind of the dark underside of the Smithsonian. Like when it was formed.
Like the Vatican.
The Vatican. We can talk about that too. The Smithsonian, I think the first director might have been John Wesley Powell. I could be fact checked on that. Who was like he spent a lot of time with Native Americans. He respected them. He saw them as very intelligent and resourceful. So they were well represented in the Smithsonian. But then he appointed, I forget the gentleman's name, but he was like the chief ethnographer for the East Ohio or something like that, some crazy title. And he gets into a position of power, and it turns out that sees Native cultures as Native Americans as not as subhuman. He called them specimens. He would put like their body parts on display and stuff. Look at these Native American specimens. So there'd be all these discoveries of these amazing mounds, like the Serpent Mound in Ohio, and all this stuff all around the country. And the Smithsonian would say there must have been another advanced race here because Native Americans are just they're savages. They couldn't never build this. And that became kind of embedded in the Smithsonian for a long, long time, is this isolationist theory is what they called it, where before it was called diffusionism, where diffusionism was cultures from all around the world interacted. Then the new regime came in and said there's no way that Native Americans from the Mississippian culture could interact with the Mayas or the Incas. They were too savage to do that, which is ridiculous. That's like, saying that Carthage didn't have anything to do with Rome. Of course they did. And we've learned later that some of the biggest, most advanced cities in the world, of the ancient world, were here in America. Like the city of Cahokia was a Mississippian culture. It was bigger than London. It was bigger than Paris. It was like a big advanced civilization that just got kind of covered over. And so the Smithsonian just sort of had this worldview that they're just locked into it. And I think we see a lot of that with pseudoscience, pseudo-archaeology. If it doesn't fit the mainstream narrative, then you're marginalized, you're censored. Again, Graham Hancock, when Ancient
Oh no.
Apocalypse came out, it was called the most dangerous series on Netflix, because it was white supremacy and all this crazy stuff.
White supremacy?
Because if it's an advanced civilization that was here before us, the implication is that it was white, when he never says anything like that. He never says anything like that. He's married to a woman of color. So it's infuriating. Because he took a lot of heat for that show.
I love that show.
Of course. And you don't have to believe all of it. And I don't subscribe to everything he does, but I'm fascinated by the topics. And we can get back to giants in a second. I'm just trying to set up that there are forces that want to keep certain things away from us. There's an initiative right now to have the Smithsonian catalog and make public everything they have there, which I don't think is going anywhere. The Smithsonian gets very strange carve-outs of laws. There was a law passed not too long ago which required all museums to return anything that was of value to Native American cultures back to the tribes, especially if it was funeral, anything that have to do like funeral, whatever it's called, death rights or whatever, to return all that stuff. So this law is passed, the museums have to do all that, but specifically it says in line after line, Smithsonian is exempt. Smithsonian doesn't count. Smithsonian doesn't have to do
So
anything. So they don't have to
ridiculous.
respond to any of it. So then we go back to Grand Canyon or the Giants, and we don't really know. It's hard to know what's true because there's over 1,000 reports in newspapers of these findings. But the mainstream narrative is it was giants were cool at the time. It was hoaxes, and it was just to make money. But it's just too many coincidences. And there's one giant story that's interesting because it overlaps several cultures, native cultures, where you've got in like the Mississippi Valley, they have these Indian myths about these giants that they're cannibals. So they're eating the people, and they get driven west by the tribes. They unite and drive them west into like Nevada and California, and they end up at what's known as Lovelock Cave. And the Lovelock Cave giants are famous giants. They're the red-haired giants. So the story goes that they're at war with all these tribes, and during the war, when the natives are falling, they're like eating them in the battlefield. So it unites the tribes, and they drive them into Lovelock Cave, and they seal the cave, and they set fire to the whole place. And an archaeologist goes in there and finds sandals that are like size 29 and these giant clothes that, like, I'm not making this part up. You can go see this. Like, why is there a sandal that's this size that are all found in the cave, and bones and red hair?
All right, since y'all absolutely lost your minds over part 1 of the Book of Enoch, let's talk about the part nobody warned you about. The Nephilim, the giants. So in the Book of Enoch, when the Watchers come down and start messing around where they didn't have any business, the result wasn't just chaos, it was offspring. These beings were called the Nephilim, and no, that word don't mean people who were kind of tall. That's church cleanup language. In Hebrew, Nephilim comes from Nephal, meaning to fall, fallen ones. Not metaphorically, literally. These giants weren't just big dudes wandering around the hills. Enoch describes them as violent, destructive, and completely out of balance. They devoured everything, crops, animals, and eventually humans. And here's the kicker nobody likes to talk about. Their existence is one of the reasons given for the flood. Yeah. God didn't flood the earth because people were sipping wine and partying.
That's also why they cut down the giant trees.
Too much. According to Enoch, creation itself had become corrupted. And before somebody says, well, that ain't in my Bible, Genesis 6 mentions the Nephilim too, just barely. like a footnote nobody wants to explain. It says, there were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that. Now, after that. Let that marinate there for a minute. Now here's the real question. If the Nephilim were wiped out in the flood, why does the Bible say, and also after that? Huh? That's part 3 if you want it. Drop me a comment over here. Ask questions. Or tell me I'm going to hell. I got my boots on.
If I die tomorrow, I would like everyone who suffers from forgetfulness, mental confusion, and memory lapses, including you, to know about this. Why doesn't anyone tell us that memory loss can be reversed without expensive medications or doctor visits?
You know how we're taught
Pretty sure this is AI again.
Fanatics who came out of nowhere, built a war machine from nothing, and tried to conquer the world? Yeah. Textbooks make it sound like Germany just bootstrapped itself into tanks and planes through sheer hatred. But what if I told you the real story isn't in Berlin? It's on Wall Street. A dozen American banks and corporations didn't just do business with Hitler. They built him, funded him, armed him, and kept the checks flowing even after American
We've
boys
heard
started
this story
dying.
before
And the kicker,
on other
some of them
people
got richer
we're
during the
fighting
war than
against.
before it. Stick around, because by the end, you'll see why your history teachers skipped this chapter, and why the same companies profiting from genocide are still running your world today. All right, let's rewind to 1933. Hitler just seized power. Germany's economy? Destroyed. The Treaty of Versailles crushed them with reparations. Hyperinflation in the 20s wiped out savings. Unemployment's at 30%. People are starving. The Reichsmark is worthless. And Hitler's promising to make Germany great again. But here's the thing nobody tells you. You can't build a military with speeches. You
Make
need steel,
Germany
you need
great
oil,
again.
You need cash, mountains of it. And Germany in 1933 has none of those things. So where did it come from? Picture this. Wall Street, 1920s. American banks are flush with cash. They've been lending to everyone, and especially Germany. Because even though Germany lost World War I, even though they owe billions in reparations, American banks see an opportunity. The Dawes Plan, 1924. J.P. Morgan, Dillon Reed, Chase National Bank, they restructured German debt. They floated bonds. And they made Germany dependent on American capital. Over $475 million flowed from the U.S. to Germany between 1924 and 1931. That's over $8 billion today. Not charity. Loans at interest, with strings attached. American bankers literally managed Germany's economy through the Dawes Committee. And when Hitler takes over, he inherits this entire system. And American banks don't pull out, they double down. Here's the mind blower. Standard Oil, owned by the Rockefellers, made a deal with IG Farben, the German chemical giant that later made Zyklon B for the gas chambers. Joint ventures, technology sharing, and the big one, synthetic fuel. Germany has no oil. Zero. They're landlocked. No colonies, no access to Middle Eastern fields. So how did the Luftwaffe fly? How did Panzer tanks roll across Europe? Standard Oil gave them the technology to make synthetic fuel from coal, the hydrogenation process. And without that, Germany's military runs out of gas in 6 months. Standard Oil knew exactly what they were doing. They had reps in Germany, they got reports, and they kept the partnership running even after 1939, even after Poland, even after war was declared. Let that sink in. The company that became Exxon gave Hitler the technology to fuel his war machine. IBM, yeah, the computer company. They didn't just sell punch card machines to Germany, they customized them for tracking Jews. Every concentration camp had IBM machines processing data, prisoner numbers, transport schedules, death counts, work assignments, who lives, who dies, all processed on IBM equipment. IBM's German subsidiary, Dehomag, maintained the machines throughout the war, sent technicians, provided updates. An IBM headquarters in New York. They collected royalties. Every punch card sold, every machine leased, IBM got paid. An American company profited from organizing genocide. They didn't pull triggers. They just made mass murder efficient, industrial, trackable. And after the war, no prosecution, no consequences. They're still one of the biggest tech companies on earth. Ford Motor Company. Henry Ford was a raging anti-Semite. Published a newspaper called the Dearborn Independent that blamed Jews for everything. Communism, banking, war. He literally published the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, a fake conspiracy text. Hitler loved him, kept Ford's portrait on his desk, called him an inspiration. And Ford's German factories, Ford Werke, They didn't stop production when war broke out. They ramped up, building trucks for the Wehrmacht, engines for German military vehicles, using slave labor from concentration camps.
Oh, it's rabbit hole.
It is rabbit hole time. Oh my gosh, I don't know about you guys, but that last one, I don't know, really made my stomach turn. That is so disgusting. But a lot of us know that things aren't exactly what they seem. That's why a lot of people have blinders on and they don't want to see what's actually going on. You can love your country, don't trust your government. On that note, we're going to go to our second music break, and on this break, we have once again Mr. Hosni Bronx from Jamaica, as well as the Bronx of New York, with Free Child and Strong Life. Then we have King Cinnamon with Rosie. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this music break.
I am a child of war. Who
yeah, it's funky on the beats.
Suck my boobs, you got my body loose. Anytime you talk me, you got me confused. Suck my boobs, you got my body loose. Anytime you talk me, you got me confused. Cinnamon, cinnamon, do it softly. I said you wine your body, eat a sweetie, sweetie. Make it rock my body, I am feeling horny. Make it touch my body, I am feeling sweetie. Suck my boobs, you got my body loose. Anytime you talk me, you got me confused. Suck my boobs, you got my body loose. Anytime you talk me, you got me confused. All my men, they wear out. All my guys, they wear out. Imarama, Imarama, Rosie. Imarama, Rosie. All my men, they wear out. All my guys, they wear out. Imarama, Rosie. Imarama, Rosie. Mukomukeji, go bere muketa. Oya mukomukeji, oya bere muketa. Daddy mu ekon, omo ni pe mukeji. Daddy bere muketa, omo ni fún mi lẹ́yìn. Daddy fisi, omo ni ejo. Daddy saucy, omo ni ejo. Daddy kosi, omo ni ejo. Daddy turn him pussy, omo ni ejo. Daddy and his baby, them dey for corner. Daddy begin the touch and the girl dey holla. Now daddy begin the open the shirt collar. Now something come out, daddy begin the suck am. Daddy move ekon, omo ni pe mukeji. Daddy bere muketa, omo ni fún mi lẹ́yìn. Daddy fisi, omo ni ejo. Daddy saucy, omo ni ejo. All my men they wear out. All my guys they wear out. Imarama, Rosie. Imarama, Rosie. All my men they wear out. All my guys they wear out. Imarama, Rosie. Imarama, Rosie. Suck my boobs, you got my body loose. Anytime you touch me, you got me confused. Suck my boobs, you got my body loose. Anytime you talk me, you got me confused. Cinnamon, do it softly. I said you wine your body, eat a sweetie. Shake it, rock my body, I am feeling horny. Shake it, touch my body, I am feeling sweetie. Suck my boobs, you got my body loose. Anytime you talk me, you got me confused. Suck my boobs, you got my body loose. Anytime you talk me, you got me confused. Fisi, amani, ejo. Daddy saucy, amani, ejo. Daddy kosi, amani, ejo. Daddy kahim pussy, amani, ejo. Daddy contact, amani, ejo. Daddy comfort, daddy consist, amani, ejo. Daddy can't eat, daddy 120, amani, ejo. Daddy 18, daddy 240, amani, ejo. Daddy 36, daddy and the baby, them there for corner. Daddy begin the touch and the girl they holla. Daddy begin the open the shirt collar. Something come out, daddy begin the sucker. Daddy move, echo, amani pe mukeji. Daddy bere muketa, amani fún mi lẹ́yìn. Daddy fisi, amani ejo. Daddy saucy, amani ejo. All my men they wear out. All my guys they wear out. Imarama,
Oh yeah, it's funky on the beats.
Babylon to make you suffer. Babylon to make you suffer. Babylon Babylon make you suffer. What is desire? Young life. We are ready to fight. Hard life for my people. I don't know why my people live this life. I don't know why my people live this life. I don't know how to fight, 'cause my people suffer. What do you want, Babylon? I don't understand why this world is so strange, strange with my people. I don't know how to fight, but if we are together, it will work. It will work. Babylon no have no heart. 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 My people, you have to survive. Yeah, you must rebuild you and make your own way. You must not give up. The beginning of the revolt will start. We need to follow our true destiny. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Yeah, 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 yeah. I don't know why my people live this life. I don't know why my people live this life. The obstacle we face, yeah, is Babylon. The world is a good place, yeah, for our freedom. You take everything, you don't breathe anything, yeah, yeah. Young life, all anti-dread. We must believe in a magical, powerful force that unite us, not just these people stay speechless again. We don't want to talk, no, it's time to fight, yeah. We start talking. Babylon make you suffer. 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 What is desire? Young life. We are ready to fight.
Welcome back, and thanks so much for hanging out with me tonight on We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. So, yeah, for some apparent reason, my camera has gone off course. I even checked the settings, and it's not showing up, and the light's off, and I'll try to get it fixed. But until I do, let's go ahead and get on with the show, shall we?
Told you there's a 5-second miracle that can unlock incredible peace and power in your life. And it's not what you think. Here it is. Take 100% responsibility for everything that happens in your life. No exceptions.
Okay.
No conditions. I know your mind's probably just went, but what about that drunk driver out there? How's that my fault? And that's okay. That resistance, it's normal. But when you commit to just being open to the idea that you somehow, on some level, called it forth, that the universe is always doing things for you, not to you, something profound shifts within you. Yeshua said the kingdom of God is within. This isn't about blame. It's about realizing your immense creative power. When you stop resisting what is and start owning your internal world, you tap into a deep certainty that everything is always ultimately fine. That's where true peace lives. Now, this ain't easy, but it's liberating. Comment peace over here if you're brave enough to step into this miracle. And don't forget to like and share this with somebody that needs to hear it.
Did you know that
I can't wait to try it.
this big scary box that lives in Zach Bagans' Haunted Museum in Las Vegas and causes death and destruction to all who open it is actually just one big hoax? Well, let's get into it. I did the full version of this story on my podcast, Real Life Ghost Stories, but let's do the TLDR version here. The world found out about the Dybbuk box through an eBay listing from a man called Kevin Mannis in 2001. The story goes that Kevin had bought this wine box from a yard sale of a recently deceased Holocaust survivor who had fled Nazi-occupied Poland, ended up in Spain, and then came to the US. The wine cabinet was one of only 3 items that she brought with her. So after he had purchased the box, the granddaughter of this woman said, "Oh, you bought the Dybbuk box. Now that contains Dybbuk, which is an evil restless spirit in Jewish folklore, and you must always keep the box closed." Naturally, Kevin almost immediately opened the box, and guess what? Bad things started happening. Now, inside the Dybbuk box, there were 2 US wheat pennies dating to 1925 and 1928, 2 locks of hair, a dried rosebud, a 4-legged candlestick, a golden wine cup, and a granite sculpture inscribed with the Hebrew word shalom. The Shema, which is a prayer considered one of the most important in Judaism, was carved into the back of the cabinet. Kevin gifts the evil cursed box to his mother, somebody called Freud, who opens it, feels an evil breeze, and immediately has a stroke. So over the course of 2 years,
and she made him take it out.
In relation to this box, the doors are found open numerous times. Weird smells emanate from it, like cat urine and jasmine. Mannis and his family all start having the same reoccurring nightmare of a hag-type woman. There were allegedly 2 suicides that were associated with the box, and then weirdly, Kevin decides, do you know what I'm going to do? Give it to my girlfriend. Again, why are you giving this haunted, cursed box that is killing people to the women in your life? She promptly gave it back because
that's weird.
she's seen shadow figures around her house. Cue Kevin Mannis writing a really detailed description and selling the box on eBay. The box is bought by a man called Jason Haxton, who goes on to write a book about his weird experiences with the box, which include bleeding from the eyes and seeing an old hag type woman. So Haxton writes his book.
Bleeding from the eyes?
Made about the Dybbuk box. Now fast forward to 2016 and the Dybbuk box is bought by none other than my favourite person, Zach Bagans, who opens it in 2020 with, bizarrely, Post Malone in the room. Over the next couple of months, Post Malone's private jet was forced to make an emergency landing. His house was broken into.
Didn't he get in a car wreck? Yeah.
He blamed the Dybbuk box for those things. Now, the Dybbuk box is still on display in Zach Bagans' museum. Now, I personally don't support gratuitous displays of photographs of crime scenes of modern day victims of murder. So I don't recommend going. And here's the other thing. In 2021, Kevin Mannis, the original owner of the Dybbuk box, admitted that his eBay listing was just an exercise in creative writing. Kevin Mannis had a background in creative writing and a background in advertising. He had completely made up the story and he wondered if it might take off and turn into a modern day.
Yeah, urban legend, but that becomes a thought form, and a thought form becomes an entity.
A urban legend, and guess what? It did, because the Dybbuk box is a staple in the paranormal zeitgeist. Now, this posed a problem for Jason Haxton, who had ended up buying the box and had written a whole book about all the awful things that befell him when he bought the box, and he subsequently sold the box to Zach Bagans for an undisclosed amount of money, who also said that loads of weird things had happened since he owned the box. So what were they now going to do? Well, Haxton said that yes, the original story may have been made up, but Kevin Mannis definitely put a curse on the box, and that's why it was so haunted. Kevin Mannis was so assured in the knowledge that he had created the Dybbuk box that he posted on his Facebook page saying that if anyone can find mention of a Dybbuk box anywhere prior to his 2001 eBay listing, he would give them $100,000 and also tattoo their name on his forehead. That might be hyperbolic though. And as far as I know, there's no mention of Dybbuk boxes in Jewish folklore. Now, a Dybbuk is a real thing in Jewish folklore, but Dybbuk boxes, not so much. There is a brilliant article written by Charlie Moss, and it was released in July 2021, that is entitled "Finally, the Truth Behind the Haunted Dybbuk Box Can Be Revealed," and it goes through the story in great detail, including the other people who owned the box, etc., etc. And look, fundamentally, this is a story about a couple of guys who apparently don't know each other, who both saw the chance to make money from a great story. And what's really interesting about this is that it speaks to our human love of magic. And
okay, so it totally makes sense. I looked it up, and it's what I was expecting it to be, but in Jewish folklore, a malevolent wandering spirit that enters and possesses the body of a living person until exorcised. So perhaps they called it a Dybbuk box because it was carrying the spirit until it did possess someone, which it never did. It harmed, supposedly, the mother and whoever else opened it, and mostly being female, except for Post Malone.
Ethereal otherworldliness, that even though we know categorically that the story behind this allegedly haunted box is completely fabricated, people still believe in its power. Now, as I've said, I've been to Zach Bagans' Haunted Museum. Don't ask, I was going through something. And I saw the Dybbuk box in person. Did I find it scary? No.
No.
Was it surrounded by great spooky theatre? Yeah. It had a whole spooky set to itself. So I get why people go to it and feel like, oh, that's giving me bad vibes. Do I think it's actually haunted? No. Do I think it's a great story? Yeah, it's fun. Anyway, if you want more of the story in detail, you can listen to that episode of my podcast, Real Life Ghost Stories. I tell ghost stories every week. Yeah, come and join me.
This is how my friend Sam got stuck in the country of Chad in Africa for 12 years. Now, before we do that, in the comments, you can buy our Nothing Says Oklahoma Like Coyotes and Butt Plugs t-shirt that everybody's been asking for. You can also buy our original Nomads Animal Encounter shirts. Click that link in the comments there or in the bio. All right, so let's get right into this story about how this guy that I met named Sam was stuck in Chad in Africa for 12 years, okay? I used to work at a car dealership, and we used to have this customer that would come in all the time, and he would always get service work there. And I decided one day I was going to sit down and just talk to him, you know, see why he comes in all the time, because he came in a lot. Like, he was super meticulous about his vehicle. He was an older guy. He was probably like in his 60s or so. And I got to know him over the course of a couple of years. And one day, I don't know what compelled him to tell me his life story about how this happened to him, but he did. And I'm so glad he did. So essentially, Sam, which I don't know his traditional name, I believe he was from somewhere in Nigeria, was traveling with his family to a boat that was going to bring them to the United States. And this was in the 1980s. And on this boat, they were moving their whole life. Sam was a doctor over there. And he had a wife and a son, and they had a whole big house full of stuff that was all coming to the United States, his car, everything. So he had some of his doctor office stuff to kind of tie up. His wife and son left about 2 days before he did with all of their belongings. Now, you got to remember, this is 1980s, no cell phones yet, okay? No internet yet. They'd already gone to America and picked out the location they were going to and all this other stuff. While he was going to the place where the ship was, I don't remember what country he was going to, but he had to pass through Chad, which is a country on the continent of Africa. And when he had to pass through
passport
Chad,
on the other one?
back in the 1980s, it was extremely rough. I don't know how it is nowadays, but back then, I mean, it was considered a third world country. There was a lot of like guerrilla warfare going on there. There was a lot of infighting there. And anyhow, he stayed in the hotel room. He was going to get up the next morning and continue his journey down. And he woke up in the middle of the night to AKs being, put in his face. And they robbed him of everything. And when I say everything, I mean his clothes, his passport, his, money, literally all of his paper documentation, everything. And like we stated before, this is 1980s. It's not as easy as popping on the computer and getting another one. There's no cell phones. You can't make a phone call. So my first question to him was, okay, dude, did you go to the police afterwards? And he said, no, and here's why. 1, I'm naked. 2, I'm in Chad. The police down there do not ask a whole lot of questions. He said, like, there was almost no kind of justice system. If you got thrown in jail or thrown in prison there's a good chance no one is ever going to come for you, especially since you had no documentation proving who you were. He had no paperwork with him, no light. They took everything, all of his IDs. They took it all.
Gosh.
He had no money to buy new things. So he said for a few days he was afraid to go to the police because he just knew that it was going to be a situation where they might not ask any questions. They might just go ahead and throw him in jail. And then no one would ever get to hear from him ever. He did not know the new phone number of where he needed to call out to try to get a hold of his wife and his son that had already, came to the United States. So he was terrified. So he lived a few days essentially being homeless, stealing food.
I wonder if they thought he was dead for those 12 years.
And he lived this way for, around 2 weeks, he said. After that, he found some like kind of odds and end jobs where people didn't really ask a lot of questions. He was able to make a little bit of money going that way. And before he knew it, a whole year had passed. And he had no idea how he was going to get out of this situation. So one day he bit the bullet and he said, hey, I'm going to go try to, talk to the police and hopefully they'll just believe me. And when he went there, he said his biggest fear was realized. They immediately tried to throw him into a jail cell. And when one of the guards walked away, he just ran out the door and just never went back because they were going to hold him in a jail cell until they could get it figured out. And he was afraid that would be the rest of his life.
Forever,
So he did not want to go there at all. So he was on the run, essentially, for a few more years. He was trying to get back to his home country where he could talk to his family. But at this time, like I said, the roads were dangerous. There was a lot of fighting going on. There was a lot of people at the different borders. And so it was a real threat that he would just get, gunned down.
He could have tried to call a news outlet from the United States, but being in the 80s, you don't have access to the phone book, and who knows that number. Oh my gosh, could you imagine? This is a real life nightmare.
On site.
Totally ruined his whole life, I bet.
Without getting to talk to anyone or explain anyone. And they could speak a different language than he speaks. That was also a big problem, is there's humongous language barriers going on over there that he was, trying to navigate and to cross. Fast forward about 6 years into him living like this. He meets a very wealthy man that he wanted to teach his children English. And so he had actually met Sam a few times from some place that Sam had an odd-end job. And then he noticed that Sam had really good English, and they would have conversations in English. And he said, hey, I'm a busy man. Can you teach my children English because we're about to move to the United States? Sam said, okay, I think this is my way in. So he stayed with that family for years, teaching them fluent English. They would frequent the U.S. and come back and forth. He was terrified to tell this man, hey, I had this happen to me, because he was afraid that guy would turn him over, turn him in. I had this happen to me. This is how I've had to live for the past, decade at this point. Can you please do me a favor? And the next time you go to the United States,
be solid.
Can you figure out a way to take me with you? The wealthy guy said, yes, you're essentially a member of my family at this point. And they smuggled him into the United States on a cargo ship. At this point, this was late 1990s.
Wow.
He got over here. He could not track down his wife and his son. I mean, you got to think it's been 12 years at this point. He could not find his wife and son. He just picks up life like normal. His career as a doctor is gone. It's out the wind. I mean, he is so far obviously out of practice. And all the licensing and everything else, it's gone. It's out of the wind. He still has no documentation of who he is. He still has no passport to be there in the United States. He definitely doesn't have any kind of like his immigration paperwork. Nothing. None of that. So now he's almost kind of in the same situation in the United States. He was able to eventually get it worked out. And fast forward modern times, Facebook comes out. He's able to find his wife and son on Facebook when he searched their names.
Oh, wow.
And, obviously, what's coming. She obviously had remarried. Their son had, I mean, he was an adult. He had kids of his own. So this guy had grandkids he didn't know about. He had other, you know, his son had other siblings with the new relationship that the wife had. He was able to talk to them. They had a big family meeting and a big get together. And unfortunately, they did look for him for a long time, but they didn't know where he went missing at. I mean, you're talking about a 1,000-mile journey that they didn't know, you know, that crossed several countries, that they did not know where he went missing at, because they did try to call different authorities and police stations and all this. But like I said, you're dealing with multiple language barriers. You're dealing with somebody that can't identify themselves. There was tons of, you know, refugees over there. There's tons of people who couldn't identify themselves already. So it was just a nightmare, essentially. And after a long time, she gave up and just assumed that he had died or left the family, you know, what have you. And I just thought that was one of the most incredible stories I've ever heard. And I don't know why it's not a movie. Like, I don't know, whoever needs to get in front of Sam and let him just tell you the full story with all the details, it would be one of the coolest movies, I think, imaginable out there. Don't forget to click the link in the comments or go to our bio on Facebook and get your Nothing Says Oklahoma Like Coyotes and Butt Plugs t-shirt. If you don't know what that's from, it was one of our all-time most favorite videos that people liked and commented and shared. Every time I meet people out in public that know me from our videos, they always bring that story up. I don't want to spoil it. If you haven't seen it, just search Coyote Butt Plug Oklahoma. I'm sure it's going to pop up.
All right, so look, I've been sitting here doing some self-reflecting, pondering on the disturbance and the force within myself. And the conclusion I came to was so significant that I thought it would be worthy of sharing to y'all. I feel like somebody out there might find some value here in this lesson. And the lesson is, I realized the disturbance and the force within myself was because I'm reaching a crossroads here. It's the same crossroads that I talk about in my book. You know, it's knowing your potential, you know, understanding your potential, especially from a spiritual perspective, you know, what you really are, but then living with the reality and the limitations of being a human. And lately I've been feeling that struggle even more because I realized that conflict, that crossroads is, on the one hand, I'm still trying to be a butcher, a baker, a candlestick maker. You know what I mean? Trying to work these jobs, trying to make it work with the ways of the matrix. Hell, even trying to make it on social media, trying to make money as a content creator is still part of the fucking matrix. How you think you make the money? You know? Who you think you're making money for with those ads? Yeah, they pay us with the money that they generate from them ads, but if they're paying us that, how much money do you think they making off us? You know? But anyways, on the one hand, I'm still trying to be the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, still trying to win as a human in the matrix. And I know that that doesn't work. It can't work like that. It can't work like that because the foundation of this reality is mental, is consciousness. And by trying to win as the human, as the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, you're only going to get so far. And I already know that. But the solution is, I made a video called Let Go and Let God. The esoteric understanding of let go and let God. And I feel like that is the opposite of trying to be the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker. And this is this gap I'm at. On this side, I understand the supreme circumstance of my mind. I understand how my consciousness is the foundation of reality and how my thoughts manifest in real life. I understand the interconnectedness of all living things and the oneness. I understand all that. But for some reason, there's a part of my brain that is still like trying to win as the butcher, the baker, and the candlestick maker, instead of trying to win with my consciousness. Instead of trying to win with my thoughts. Instead of trying to win with the reality that my decisions cause the division of atoms. Holy shit. So, I'm realizing you can't just be on both sides. You got to pick one or the other. Like how in the Bible will say you can't be lukewarm. Well, you can't be lukewarm for your own liberation. And I see it. And I realize the solution, at least for me, to get to the next level of whatever I'm supposed to be, is embracing the fact that I am not a butcher, a baker, or a candlestick maker, but I am a revolutionary. I did not come here to be no slave. I came here to be free. I came here to be a free human being. I came here to help other humans be free human beings. You know? And I need all of my thoughts, ways, and actions to be consistent with that. You know? And I can't stay in that alignment if I put so much emphasis on still trying to be the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker. Still trying to make it as a human in the matrix.
Oh no. Back. We lost him. We lost him, folks.
So, that's it. The moral of the story is you have to pick a side. You have to make a decision. Do you want to win as a human in the matrix, as a butcher, a baker, a candlestick maker? Or do you want to liberate yourself? Do you want to control your reality with your consciousness? Do you want to grow and evolve to the next version of what you really are? Do you want to operate from the circumstance of what you really are? Because most people stop at the idea that you are the body, but you're not the body. You know?
It's spirit.
You're not the body.
The body's
it's just a suit. It's a vehicle. It's an avatar. So that's the moral of the story. You got to pick a side. You got to pick a side. And if you don't pick a side, everything's going to be confusion. Everything's going to be foggy. And this is going to be a whole lot of unnecessary conflict. And if you want peace, you're going to have to pick a side. Hopefully, you pick the side of liberation.
Right.
Peace.
Peace, my brother.
Hello, guys. Long time no see. I've taken a bit of a break, but we're back on it now, just before the new year. So it turns out 3i Atlas was nothing. And it was just, a blow over the whistle, I guess. But look, I mean, these things are going to happen. I think the most important thing to do is to talk about everything openly and then have it critiqued as and when the information comes out. But so far, from amateur astronomers, there's nothing that stands out entirely that people are like, well, hang on a minute, what's going on here? Crisis averted, effectively, because I know some people were quite worried about that, but that's not going to be the case thus far. Now, there has been some discussions that I'm sure you've heard about with James Fox talking about this new addition to his moment of contact, the Virginia case, where basically a doctor's come forward and has done a personal interview with James Fox, who spent no less than 4 minutes with an alien being on an autopsy table. It's a fascinating listen, and this guy has been effectively in hiding for a very long time, and is...
Okay, so just because there wasn't a big to-do about the whole 3i Atlas thing here on Earth doesn't mean it was nothing. The way that it went past every planet in our solar system was so precise to be able to scan and check it out and everything. Just because it didn't stop here or whatever, doesn't mean it was nothing. The color changed like 4 or 5 different times, so many different things. The change in trajectory or I don't know. So many weird things about it. It wasn't nothing.
Kind of on his last legs from what I saw from looking at the interview. I won't go into too much detail about that because I think it's important to do some plugs for other people that are working very hard and doing their due diligence in this industry, in this space. So please go and look at Moment of Contact on Amazon Prime with the additional extra points or extra bits in there that goes into the in-depth interview with the doctor that worked on this alien being for no less than 4 minutes before it was removed to a secure location, I think by the Brazilian military, and then later on was collected by a US military unit that took the being and parts of the craft back to the United States, obviously to an undisclosed location. In parentheses, probably Wright Pat Air Force Base. But anyway, who knows? Who knows? Moving forwards, I want to cover this piece about USOs. There was an interview with Tim Burchett when he speaks to Ross Coulthard on News Nation on Reality Check, who reveals why he believes non-human intelligence may be operating from deep underwater locations. So Burchett describes sonar detections of mass objects moving at hundreds of miles per hour underwater. Now, as we know, the fastest thing we have underwater, I think, is in excess of like 150 knots, maybe, and I think that's some sort of special torpedo. I don't know if it's anything faster than that. I think 200 is pushing it. Let's just put it that way. You know, there have been reports of things going hundreds of miles an hour, like 500-600 knots underwater, which is basically, with the current technology we have, we don't have anything that can do that.
Yeah, it's impossible.
So again, he repeated UFO ocean equals UFO transmedium activity. So transmedium obviously is something that can move through the air, space, through Earth, if you like, or in the water and have no resistance whatsoever. It's a transmedium type, form of travel, I guess, in this case. Claims from Navy and pilot witnesses told to stay silent on this. So we know that there is a systemic issue with pilots reporting on UAP in general, and we know that they have been, basically warned with their career on the line to keep their mouth shut and not say anything else, which is why we don't have, PIREPs on this stuff. We don't have decent reporting on this stuff within the Navy. And listen, I'll attest to this from the commercial aviation side. This is heavily frowned upon within commercial aviation to do pilot reports on UAP encounters. Like, it's a very, very, how do I put this, taboo thing to be doing, effectively. And I even when I was going through some of my early days of line training with captains and things, and I was briefed on certain things that we just don't talk about, this was brought up. And it's not something that is openly discussed. That's now changing over the past, I'd say, 15 years, especially the last 5. But now it's probably a bit more openly accepted, given all of the congressional movements we've seen on Capitol Hill. Reports of electromagnetic interference affecting nuclear assets. We know this. We know this is very well documented. We know that these things seem to be attracted to it. There have even been some cases where there were reports of a Russian vessel that was dealing with a UAP right above their heads, and they almost, when they were surveyed by a third party, they didn't even seem to react to this thing as if they knew it was going to come, or if it was some sort of collaboration of some kind. So, yeah, there's that. Why the deep ocean may be the perfect hiding place. Again, it's one of the most unexplored things on the planet.
It's so expensive.
It's one of the places we haven't explored properly. Think about that. We've discovered more on the surface of the moon than we have the surface of our oceans. And what better place to hide, if you are a break-off civilization, than to hide in the Pacific Ocean? Now, I'm not suggesting it, is limited to the Pacific Ocean. The Atlantic's pretty damn big. It's the second largest ocean in the world. But the Pacific is massive. It's massive. It takes almost 12 hours to cross it from end to end, flying at 600 knots continuously in an airliner. So it's no joke. It's a big bloody ocean. So why not hide smack bang in the middle of it? If you've got technology that can move at, beyond the speed of light, that's using anti-gravitic properties, why wouldn't you hide down there? It makes perfect sense. Right. But again, we saw this from Navy personnel in the last congressional hearing, talking about these things. So it's not limited to just hearsay. There are some people testifying towards this stuff, which I think needs to be taken seriously and looked into. How Congress has been blocked from full disclosure. We know this. We know that it's compartmentalized. We know that they're not getting all of their ducks in a row. We know that they're not receiving all the information set forth, okay? And that's been said repeatedly on many occasions from whistleblowers and people that are testifying to Congress on these issues. His belief that the US government is lying about what he knows, of course it is. Of course it is. We know this. Fundamentally, that private aerospace firms are running the floor with this stuff, and they don't intend on coming clean with what they know. With thousands of USO reports near US coastlines, including data cited from Enigma Labs, Burchett argues the pattern is no longer dismissible. Something is down there. They're real. So this isn't speculation from a podcaster. It's coming from a sitting US congressman involved in UAP legislation. So as you know, Burchett was probably the most vocal person 2.5, 3 years ago on this, after we had, David Grush come forwards and everyone else.
Right.
So, and I think that at the moment, we need to understand, like, this is not going away, guys. And again, this is speeding up. There's more and more information coming out. There's more and more people that want to talk about this stuff. Why this matters. So USOs changed the entire UAP debate. This isn't just space anymore, okay? It's all over the place. Underwater tech at 200 miles per hour breaks known physics. Oceans equals surveillance plus concealment. Congressional oversight appears obstructed. Disclosure pressure is building again. So we know now that the task force that Burleson and a bunch of other congressmen and women were running is now coming to an end. And basically, I think anything important now is probably going to come through a podcast, through someone like me or someone else in the space outside of government, because they're going to shut it down. They're going to completely shut this down. And we need to accept that fact and move forwards with that new information.
Somebody mowing the lawn or something.
Because I think the lay of the land is about to change, and not to our benefit. I think it's going to get much, much harder now that the government has officially shut down the task force with Paulina Luna and Burchett and David Grush working in line with Burleson and everything else. That's all coming to an end now. So yeah, more to be discovered, more to be discussed. And what I will do, guys, is I'm not going to sensationalize anything. I am going to keep this as newsworthy as possible, to keep it as realistic and as down to earth as possible. There's a lot of stuff going on in the UAP world at the moment. There's a lot of topics to discuss. But again, with me, I like to cover the bases. I know some of this stuff isn't the most interesting, but it's important that we have the foundation set and the groundwork in place, okay, with the basic information, okay? And that's what I'm going to continue to do as a reliable source for you guys, to keep you up to date with all things UAP. You heard it first from DK. Have a good rest of your day, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.
Guys, really exciting news. 4 independent companies with satellites have run scans of the Giza pyramid to try and replicate the data that was done by the Italian team earlier in the year. If you haven't heard about it, where have you been? Anyway, 4 completely different international companies have rerun the scans with their own equipment, and all of them have had the same results. So we've had a European company called ICI, their satellite, 2 American companies, I think it's Umbra and I forgot the name of the second one. I'm going to pop them here. They are American defense contractors. And another one called Seomed, which is an Italian, again, government military satellite contractor. All legit companies that do legit SAR scanning, and they have all received the same data. So it is looking incredibly likely that there is, in fact, structures and all of those circular structures, like well shafts, that are going underneath not just the middle pyramid. It is now confirmed that it is under all of the pyramids and the Sphinx, and that they're all connected to each other in a sort of rat run of chambers and tunnels. So that's really exciting, and is I'm not gonna lie, I'm pretty smug about it, because a lot of people threw a lot of hate when this theory was put out there before anyone even got a chance to verify it. So this is really exciting. Oh yeah, also to mention that the Osiris shaft, which obviously we can map because we've been down, I've been down there myself. They scanned the Osiris shaft, and the Osiris shaft, the first 3 layers as is, shows up exactly in the SAR topography results. But not just that, it shows that it does in fact go down multiple more levels, and then at the very, very bottom there is like a massive chamber that again goes along and connects to like the Sphinx and all of them. So that's an exciting update. But what does this mean? Well, I've been speaking to Trevor Grassi, who was my original contact, who told me about the whole satellite scan project way back like a year ago, and he says that there is a process of application going on right now to start digging at a particular site, not at the pyramids or at the Sphinx, because that's like heavily protected, but there is a site that's been selected a bit further back, I think where the old donkey rides used to be on the Giza Plateau. Anyway, they have applied for a digging visa to start to see if they can dig and find at least one access point or entry point into one of these underground tunnels. So, I mean, the likelihood of that application being approved is like kind of small, but that's the latest I know. That's all I know at the moment of what's going on.
It's crazy.
As you were.
And awesome.
The following footage is not AI.
A 60-foot cryptid that the Japanese spotted in the early 2000s and dubbed the name Ninyan, which means human.
Creepy.
Now, outside of this thing being 60 feet or larger, there was a treaty signed on Antarctica that there is nobody that's allowed to make claims on the territory, which Germany absolutely tried to during the Nazis during the Cold War. They tried to send an expedition out there called New Schwabenland. However, in English, it's called New Swabia. America obviously responded with Operation High Jump.
Strangely enough, there's left in the world today an area as big as the United States that's never been seen by a human being.
And if you're interested about Antarctica and Admiral Byrd and his findings, videos on the page, we're talking about this cryptid that was allegedly found in 1959. In 2001, a Japanese research vessel came across it. Now, in 2007, the United States accidentally came across this as well. This creature would only come out the water, take a look, and go back under. So not being a hostile threat or anything, it's still pretty scary to see a giant creature that you call Ninyan human. Now in 2017, fishermen caught something that highly resembles Ninyan. What? My name is Armin. I cover the paranormal. I love the paranormal. Absolutely fascinated by it. If you want me to do a deep dive about these cryptids and creatures, these apex predators that allegedly surround and live in Antarctica, get this video up to 500 likes, and I promise it's highly interesting. But there was a creature that's been found, and I did analyze it. Now this analysis came back with a 97.2% of being real. What? Is this a small Ninyan? You decide. My name is Armin. This is The Imperfect. If you like this type of content, consider dropping a follow. It'll mean the world to me. I'll bring you the next full video. I promise this one is pretty fascinating. Watch this.
Oh my goodness. It's a little bitty guy. Wow, what the heck?
When during one of the Apollo missions, as a test, a seismic test, they crashed one of the rockets into the moon just to take readings, seismograph readings, to see, you know, what was going on there. And the phrase is, the moon rang like a bell for over an hour. So if you set off like seismic charges here to measure sound waves that go through the Earth, as they go through the Earth, they slow down as they go through all this dense matter and then through the mantle and the core. Like, it just slows down. The moon, they don't do that. The sound waves sped up and started to bounce all around in there and started to like reverberate for a long time.
Star.
And no one could really explain that. Now, the prevailing theory, the mainstream theory, is that the moon is a lot less dense than the Earth because it was created from the Earth's crust and the upper mantle, which is less dense, which is why the moon is less dense. So the interior has maybe some hollow spaces, just a less.
I don't know. I mean, that is crazy. Oh man. Well, at least it's towards the end of the show and not during too much. Pause it for a second. Hopefully it comes back. Trying to be patient. Yeah, what have you guys been thinking about the Stephen King book, You Like It Darker? I think it's been pretty cool because you can go through different stories.
This is an image of a UFO seen over Brazil on Christmas.
People comment all the time to me, how come UFOs are only seen in the United States? Well, that was Brazil, and Brazil is not in the United States. When I saw this image of the UFO over Brazil, it reminded me of something. Look at that,
Flight of the
really close,
Navigator.
and I'll show you what I was thinking. This, from a few years ago, doesn't that UFO being followed by a plane look a lot like the one from Brazil? Because it sure does to me. Now, I'm not saying this UFO, unidentified flying object, is necessarily from outer space, that it's run by extraterrestrial aliens. Or this one. I'm not saying that either. I'm just saying these things look weird and they look similar and they're obviously not airplanes. But let me know what you think about this situation, Booshkies, and how these two cases of UFOs from different parts of the world look so similar. How do they look almost exactly alike? Let me know what you're thinking in the comment section. Shabadoo Booshkies, shabadoo.
Story short, my friend asked him about Mark McCandlish and this alien reproduction vehicle, and Brad Sorensen went off on quite a diatribe, actually, very angry about Mark and how he said that I gave this man the keys to the kingdom and he went out and told the whole fucking world. And I will never do that because my employers will fry me. He said they will fucking fry me if I speak out about this. But I am capable of building and designing an aircraft that can go 210 times the speed of light.
Okay, so for those of you that cannot see and you're just listening, but you're listening, it says, would advanced alien craft or zero-point energy be too dangerous for humanity? And this is from the Galactic Mind Media. And it says, the national, even global security issue would definitely be a serious point. It would responsibly have to be implemented and not every human should have access. Hashtag national security, hashtag government, hashtag UFO, hashtag William. Right, let's continue.
Yeah, he reiterated that multiple times.
What?
Yeah,
What year was this?
I've sat on this for a couple of years. It's about 2 years ago that my friend found him. Yeah, I was
instantaneous nuclear payload delivery.
Yeah. I mean, you can imagine that's how the national security system would actually look at this. Not as an exploratory vessel, but let's be honest. What is this? It's a payload delivery system that's instantaneous. Let's be honest. That's what they would look at it as, right? Another reason to keep it secret, probably.
Shit.
But that was, I would love to get him on record. I don't know if you ever will, Brad. If you're listening to this, I would like to get you on record. But he said that he can design a craft that goes 210 times the speed of light. And this is the guy that gave Mark McCandlish the illustrations to create that ARV. So it's just weird.
I mean,
it's weird, dude.
This is the real question. What would civilization be like had this stuff not been kept secret?
Right.
What if we had access to that kind of energy, whatever that thing is operating on? Could you imagine if you had access to that energy and you're watching all these idiots burn coal?
I know.
Like, what are you doing?
What are you doing?
But you can't say anything?
Yeah.
Because you have a instantaneous
nuclear
delivery system.
I'd hate to be these people. I'd hate to be these people.
It's crazy.
Imagine sitting there knowing that we have access to these kind of technologies.
Also, like this desire to tell people something that's really important to humanity. They can't all be complete sociopaths.
But maybe they do. Like they screen them for that reason. Maybe. You know what I mean? Like they have to be a certain personality type. They don't give a fuck about humanity.
I think honestly, I think at the highest levels of these, especially these military corporations, I think you just have to become that anyway.
Yeah. By force of nature.
Oh, we're gonna kill 100,000 people today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. I mean, how emotionally attached can you possibly be in that kind of
be task oriented
position?
All right, so look, let's have an honest conversation. When we think of work, we imagine tasks, duties, and responsibilities. But in reality, the modern workplace has very little to do with the work itself. The actual product or service is secondary. The real function of most jobs of today is simple: to condition your submission. Every time you walk into that building, you are stepping into a ritual space. A space that was not designed to uplift your talents, but to slowly dismantle your dignity. Most people think that they're being paid for their skills, but in reality, the deeper truth is you're being paid for your obedience. You're being paid for your submission. That's the unspoken contract. Yes, your labor is useful, but your compliance is sacred. And in this dystopian atmosphere, you are expected to ritualize your own humiliation, the uniform, the scripted greetings, the forced enthusiasm. All of it serves one purpose, to remind you of who holds the power, because it's not enough for the system to exploit your time. It wants your energy. It wants your smile. It wants your spirit of gratitude, even while it devours you. And the managers, the bosses, the supervisors, they are not the originators of this ritual. However, they are its most loyal priests. They have been trained to value performance over principle and profits over people, and to enforce these rituals with a casual, almost calm and detached, like cruelty. Like, these people do this so calmly, but yet so cruel at the same time. It's no coincidence that narcissism is rewarded in this structure. The workplace does not need leaders, at least not in capitalism. In capitalism, the workplace needs enforcers of compliance. It needs individuals who can look you in the face, see your humanity, and still choose to prioritize a company policy over your well-being. But the humiliation ritual goes even deeper. It's in the way that you're monitored, not for the quality of your work, but for how well you conform to their behavioral expectations. Were you smiling enough? Did you say thank you in the correct tone? Did you look busy even when there was nothing to do? These are not metrics of productivity. They are tests of submission. And when you fail to perform the ritual correctly, there are consequences, write-ups, disciplinary sessions, coaching sessions, all methods to recalibrate your obedience. And this is how the modern workplace operates. Not as a collaborative environment, but more like a theater of exploitation, where the appearance of harmony is maintained through a relentless pressure to comply. And the reason it feels so dystopian is because everybody knows that it's a lie. Everybody knows that it's a performance. The work.
All right, y'all. Well, on that note, we are at the end of our show. Thank you so much to you for hanging out with me tonight. It was a pleasure hanging out with you, and I look forward to doing it this coming weekend. As per usual, I'm hoping that I can get in during the week. I'm wanting to raise the number of shows. I'm wanting to do it more often, so really wanting to do it. Hopefully in the new year we can accomplish that. I've got some awesome guests wanting to come on. Like I said, this new year is going to be awesome. It's going to be epic. I'm super excited about it. Thank you to all of my friends out there, wherever you may be listening, beyond the Omniverse tonight. What a wonderful time. And you guys don't forget, we are all in this together. Together we can make the world a little better. And together, my friends, we are Paradox Media, because without you, there is no us. Nighty night, love and light, take care of my yous. I don't see you before next weekend. Have an amazing new year.